All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome, and noting the hour and the presence of a well-fed quorum, I call the Acton-Boxborough Regional School Committee to order. Members of the public who wish to watch our meeting may do so on ActonTV's YouTube channel. And as a note, for posterity and for celebration, this meeting is being recorded and can be found on ActonTV's website at actontv.org. We're going to start our evening with a retiree recognition. At this point, I'm going to hand it over to Deputy Superintendent Andrew Shen to get us started.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. We are at the stage in the year where we have a number of celebrations, and one of them is certainly, and appropriately so, to honor our retirees who will be ending their time at Acton-Boxborough at the end of this year. Every year, sort of being alongside our colleagues who are retiring is the ultimate exercise in carrying two different competing feelings at the same time. On the one hand, you want to be happy for them because they've reached this important milestone, and at the same time, selfishly, you're very sad and disappointed that you're not going to be with them moving forward. We're going to suspend the sad part tonight. Plenty of time for that, and we're going to focus on the happy part and celebrate the achievements that they've had, the contributions that they've made, and certainly wish them well. So to do that, we have a number of retirees, some who could not make it this evening, so we certainly want to recognize them. But for those who were able to carve out some time this evening, all from the elementary schools, good job elementary schools, we're going to ask the principals from those schools to come up. They're going to read a little bit honoring each one, and then we have a bit of a parting gift for you. I'm quite proud of the fact that starting last year we shifted from certain gifts and shifting to a different type of gift that we think will serve you well in your retirement in terms of your enjoyment and recreation, so we hope you find it enjoyable as well. It's a small token of our appreciation. So with that, we're going to start in alphabetical order by school. So Blanchard Elementary, Mike, if you could join us. Right here.
Okay, Andrew's a little taller.
Bring them up here.
Okay. So first, we're going to ask Dawn Charlton to come up. Hello. So tonight we honor someone whose quiet strength and steadfast presence have made a lasting impact on our school community. As Dawn retires after 18 years of service, we want to take a moment to recognize not only the years, but the heart, dedication, and deep institutional knowledge that have defined her time with us. Dawn has been more than a general education assistant. She has been a mentor, a steady hand, and the person we could always count on. Whether it was helping a student who needed extra encouragement, stepping in to support a colleague without being asked, or remembering the little details that kept our school running smoothly, she did it all, often without recognition, but never without impact. Her willingness to step up, her patience, and her kindness have touched every corner of our school. She's the kind of person who doesn't just do the work, she lifts those around her while doing it. As she moves on to this next chapter, we want her to know how deeply grateful we are, not just for her work, but for who she is. Her legacy will live on in the lives she's touched, the lessons she's shared, and the culture of care and support she helped build. Thank you, Dawn, for everything. You will be missed more than words can say. We wish you joy, rest, and adventure in your well-earned retirement. Connie Long. We're here to celebrate and honor the remarkable career of Connie Long, who is retiring after 19 years of service to our library and our community. From the time I started at Blanchard 5 years ago, Connie brought not only a deep love for books and learning, but also a passion for connecting people with knowledge. Whether it was helping a young student discover the magic of reading for the first time, assisting a researcher in finding that elusive source, or curating programs that brought our community closer together, Connie did it all with grace, wisdom, and heart. As we say goodbye to Connie in this professional role, we don't just mark the end of a career, we celebrate her legacy. The impact of her work will continue to ripple through every person who walks through our doors. On behalf of our staff, the patrons, and the broader community, you will be deeply missed. Congrats on your retirement, Connie. May this next chapter be filled with rest, adventure, and all the books that you've been meaning to read. Congratulations. Sheila Owen. I won't, I promise. Tonight, we also honor Sheila Owen, who has left an indelible mark on our school community. Not with loud words or grand gestures, but with quiet strength, deep dedication, and wit that always seem to arrive at just the right moment. Sheila has been a steady presence in our halls for 22 years. Through changing curriculums, generations of students, and endless staff meetings, they've remained a source of calm, wisdom, and warmth. You may not have always heard them first in a room, but when they spoke, everyone listened. And when they cracked a joke, well, let's just say you had to pay attention or you'd miss a one-liner that would leave you smiling for days. Sheila has shown us that leadership doesn't require a spotlight. It can come in the form of showing up day after day with care, consistency, and a deep belief in students' potential. Whether helping a struggling student find the confidence to do something, offering a kind word in the staff lounge, or lightening the mood with a perfectly timed quip, Sheila has shaped this school in ways that words cannot express. As you head into retirement, we hope your days are filled with laughter, peace, and maybe just a few fewer bells ringing every 45 minutes. Thank you for everything, Sheila. You've made a difference in our world, and we're all better for having known you.
Thank you, Mike.
Last but certainly not least, Laura Russell. Laura Russell is retiring after 6 years of service as a special education assistant at Blanchard. Your compassion, patience, and unwavering commitment have touched countless lives. You've been more than an educator. You've been an advocate, a mentor, a steady hand, and a warm heart to students who needed it most. Your legacy will live on in the confidence you've helped build, the milestones you've helped reach, and the many smiles you've inspired. We are grateful for the difference you've made. Enjoy your well-earned retirement. You will be deeply missed, but always remembered.
Thank you, Mike. And now from Douglas Elementary, Larry Wolpe. And I think Michelle Riley, the nurse director, will join as well.
Where is she? There she is, right there. Come on up, Diane Oster. So Diane is everything you'd want in a school nurse. She is kind, she's compassionate, she's caring, she is incredibly knowledgeable, and she has the uncanny ability to call a parent when something unfortunate has happened and saying, what do you say? That's unlucky. Just, well, something happened. It was unlucky. And I said, I am adopting that from this point forward. You put students first every single day, whether that means giving them a little TLC or riding in an ambulance to the ER. Diane, thank you for your years and years of service to the entire AB and Douglas communities through thick and thin and, of course, COVID. We wish you and your family the best of luck in retirement, and you will be missed, my friend.
All right.
No crying.
Right. Now, Gates Elementary, Alison Warren.
You are quite tall. You think
Is that better?
You do know I'm not afraid. All right, we will start with June. Come on up. After 20 years of teaching 6th grade at Gates, it's hard to imagine our school without June. She has shaped the lives of countless students and has been a guiding light for staff and administrators alike. As our union rep for 7 years, June always stood up for what's right. She served on and led more committees than we can count, always with a positive spirit and listening ear. June is the person we've all turned to for support, advice, and a friendly smile. Her dedication, kindness, and leadership have made Gates a better place for everyone. June, you will be missed more than words can say. Congratulations on retirement. We hope you enjoy spending time in warmer climate, whether it be South Carolina, and I'm adding this, North Carolina, and Florida. We'll miss you. Gladys, come on down. Today, we celebrate Gladys, who has dedicated over 20 years as a special education assistant, 18 of those years at Gates and 2 at Conant. Her skilled and compassionate approach has made the classroom a welcoming, accessible place for all students, especially those with IEPs. Gladys has built strong, lasting relationships with both staff and students through her kindness, her patience, and unwavering support. I feel like I should underline, bold, and capitalize that. Her ability to connect and work with every student has truly made a difference in our community. Gladys, your presence will be deeply missed, but we are so grateful for the impact you have made. Congratulations on a well-deserved retirement, and we wish you all the best in your exciting new chapter, and enjoy Scotland. Miss Amy. Amy's journey began in 1994 as a special education inclusion assistant at Conant, followed by 3 years at Merriam while balancing grad school and certifications. In 1998, she became the reading specialist at Gates, dedicating 27 years to helping students learn how to read. I'm going to repeat that one more time. 27 years as the Gates reading specialist. That's amazing. She has played a key role in developing reading instruction both within the district and at our school. Amy's collaborative spirit has helped shape effective reading intervention plans, positively impacting countless students. Thank you, Amy, for everything you have done. We wish you all the best as you enjoy your well-earned retirement and spend precious time with your grandchildren. You will be missed.
Now it's just a punchline. McCarthy Town, Christy Nealon, please join us.
I'm honored tonight to speak about Alison Bullock. She has spent the last 9 years making a lasting impact at McCarthy Town. Okay, I can't look at her because he said I couldn't do the sad part. Whew. Before joining us, she supported students at Conant School as an assistant. She's brought kindness, high standards, and a steady supportive presence in every role. She is a teacher who's a problem solver on behalf of students. Alison has been a thoughtful leader on our art integration committee. As a colleague, she always asks the right questions, challenges our thinking, and stops at the end of every meeting to summarize, let me just make sure I got this and we're all on the same page. That is invaluable. Her commitment to collaboration and her spirit as a lifelong learner has inspired us all. I'm very grateful we have her on video speaking about art integration at our school so that it can inspire teachers for years to come. Alison, you'll be deeply missed, but we are all so excited to hear about your next adventures with your family. We're expecting lots of writing and great travel pictures. Congratulations and thank you for everything.
And finally, Christina Gavin from Miriam Elementary.
Carmen Daher, come on up. Carmen has been a beloved special education assistant at Miriam and a beloved colleague for 22 years. Both of her children went to Miriam and she started working there not too soon after. Carmen is a kind and caring educator who has gone above and beyond for her students. Often she is quietly working behind the scenes to either translate for new families or connect families with much needed resources. She loves being surrounded by children and making a difference. She shared this with me. I feel incredibly fortunate to work with such inspiring teachers. I am in awe of the teachers at Miriam, their dedication to each student and their passion. They go above and beyond and make sure no child is left behind. Carmen is looking forward to this next chapter and excited about going to New Zealand this winter. Thank you so much, Carmen. We will miss you, and happy retirement. Next up, we have Renee Hill. All right, Renee. Today we celebrate Renee Hill. She has spent the last 20 years as a dedicated Learning Center teacher at Miriam School. She's been supporting students primarily in K through 3 and occasionally 4th grade as well. Renee has covered a lot in her career. In addition to teaching her students, she has been a mentor to 5 teachers. She's hosted a student teacher, and she's generously shared her expertise in so many ways. For example, she's served on committees like Curriculum Team, Sunshine, and CST, and she's helped shape our school and district's math programs. She's also facilitated professional learning on a range of topics, from self-regulation strategies to co-teaching to meaningful math, and she's also been on many of the hiring teams over the years, which has helped to make big decisions about who's joining our AB staff. Renee is off on her next great adventure, starting with her daughter Caitlin's wedding, a fall cruise, a month snowbirding in Florida, and a dream trip to Alaska next June. Her bucket list is to visit as many national parks as possible. Renee, thank you so much. You will be missed. We care about you and all the work that you do, and happy retirement.
Thank you, everyone. So again, congratulations to those of you who are here. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we do have a number of retirees who couldn't join us tonight. So if you could just join me one last time and also congratulating them and thanking them as well.
So just for all of our retirees, if you wouldn't mind, if we would like to get one photo with all of you and the principals. If we could just go right over to that wall right over there. We'll do a quick photo. Before we do and we start moving on to the next agenda item, I just want to thank a few people. I want to thank Kirsten Nelson and the entire food services team for the hors d'oeuvres we were able to have tonight. They are spectacular. Guy Dushanik is our custodian here in the building who got everything ready for tonight, so thank you to Guy. And I want to thank Candace Doncaster and Julie Lalumiere, 2 of our assistants here in the office, for the tremendous amount of work they did putting this together. So thank you to everyone.
Congratulations. Enjoy retirement.
All right, well, thank you again to our retirees, and as a parting gift, we're not going to ask you to stay for the remainder of our meeting. We're happy to have you start your retirement at least a little bit early. I am, totally. Okay. Well, Peter stole my thanks for the organizing crew that put together a wonderful reception. For the school committee members, just a quick reminder for school committee members, next week is our last meeting of this school year, and we are meeting at 6:30 in this room, and then we have an executive session. So please make sure you've got your calendars marked next week, so it's immediately after this week's meeting. We're meeting right again next week. 6:30 is a call to order for an executive session. Open session will be at about 7 p.m. And I do want to add, first of all, welcome to everybody who was in the back who we can now see. Those seats that say reserved are no longer reserved, so feel free to come have a seat up close. And I do want to just say a very special thank you to the Madrigals. They had an amazing performance last weekend, and I'm honored to say that I'm now officially a knight of the Madrigals, and so thank you very much for that. It was a little scary having the sword passed around my head, but as you can see, I still have all my hair. All right, we're going to move on now to public participation. I know we've got a couple folks here who are walking in for some public participation, so welcome. Per our policy, BEDH, members of the public are invited to speak for up to 3 minutes. Public participation only happens during this time in our meeting. Speakers must be recognized by the chair before speaking, and as a reminder, the committee does not typically respond to comments during public participation. And I will just say that as happy as I am to have everyone here for public participation, our meeting is extremely long tonight, so please don't think that I'm being rude when I give you a little 30-second reminder and then thank you at 3 minutes for your time. All right, David, welcome.
I won't take 3 minutes. I rise again this year just to express my amazement about the interests and passions of our 7th graders. I attended, along with a couple school committee members this morning, our 7th grade civics fair. There were amazing variety of presentations, from very specific what to do in directed study at R.J. Gray to the war in Sudan, climate change things, animal cruelty, too many to mention. And it's a huge variety of subjects, and I'm just amazed and invigorated by what I see. So I just wanted to tell everyone.
Thank you, David. I think, in fact, we have some of those 7th grade students here. If you guys would like to come up, we'll give you each 3 minutes to give us a little preview of your presentation.
You go first. You have a bigger topic. Should I keep my poster up there?
You can put your display board right on there, on the table. And then if you wouldn't mind just telling us your name, if you're comfortable.
Hi, my name is Sana, and I have created a poster for my civics fair, and it's about how teachers are not getting the pay that they deserve. Teachers are the lead to our future, and they are currently building our generation. Teachers are not getting the pay that they need based on the work that they're doing. Teachers are working around 11 hours a day and get around $50,000 a year. And the average person works around 8 hours a day, while they earn around $70,000 a year. And that doesn't make sense. So I did a survey at my school to see what the teachers were saying about this. 100% of teachers were saying that they were relying on someone else or a second income to live in Acton or places near Acton, while 77.8% of teachers felt financially unstable. A recent study was also done for college students to see what they were saying about the topic as well. Most of the students felt like they did not want to go into the teaching profession because they didn't want to work the long hours, and they also didn't respect the small income that they were getting. Some possible solutions for this is spreading awareness, because many people are not aware of this topic, and the few people who are aware of this topic aren't doing anything about it. We can also decrease property taxes for teachers who are living in Acton, so they have more affordable housing. In Acton, too, the prices for everyday items are more expensive than other places due to inflation. And the teacher pay isn't going up with the inflation as well. So we should also not have taxes as much for teachers. So we can have like a teacher tax, so it's less taxes for specifically teachers. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Maddie, and I did my project on a very specific topic. There's a 20-minute block at RJ Gray called Directed Study, where students are supposed to be like sitting and doing homework quietly. But the thing is, they're not, because we don't always have homework. And when we do have homework, some of us just prefer to do it at home. Some of us just like don't want to do academics all the way through the day, which I think is totally like fair, because all students have different needs. Some students might be really overstimulated throughout the day and just need peace and quiet, but some students might like really need to like move at the end of the day, like really need recess. And I think that since directed study isn't fulfilling its original purpose to a total degree, why don't we use that time to accommodate as many student needs as we can and give students the kind of voice that we should have in our own school day, because everyone has different needs and they might change day to day. I know I don't want to do the same thing every day. That's boring. The solution that I am proposing is that within wings, each teacher would offer a different activity during directed study. For example, maybe the English teacher, you quietly read, but the social studies teacher goes outside for recess. And a lot of people reacted very positively to this. I created a question box for the people who saw my poster, and they made a lot of really good points. Some students said, directed study is very good, but I want more choice. Or, directed study is not supportive for everyone. And some teachers said that kids need to learn how to manage their time based on their physical / social / emotional / academic needs. And a parent of 3 AB kids says that they heard a lot of complaints about directed study and that this seemed like a good way to solve it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Hi, Mike Balulescu. I'm president of the Acton-Boxborough Education Association, our district's teachers union. I'm so delighted you got to hear from 2 of our students at RJ Gray, from Maddie and Sana. I wanted to comment on Sana's presentation specifically because I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Mike, that was really persuasive, and she's right. We should pay teachers a lot more. Do we need to even negotiate a new contract? Where can we sign for a pay raise? And I couldn't agree more. So I really appreciate her literally doing my job for me. As a very small token of appreciation, I wanted to offer her a not for sale, not available to the public, swag pack from the Acton-Boxborough Education Association, a water bottle sticker, and a t-shirt.
Thank you, Mike. And it looks like you're also excited for directed study recess by the social studies teachers.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes. Other members of the public who wish to speak, please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Shaylin Bernard, and I'm the captain of the Nordic team and the cross-country team at the high school. I also run track. I'm in 11th grade, and tonight I'm here with some of my teammates to propose a change to how we fulfill our PE requirements at the high school. As some of you may know, students are currently required to participate or to complete 1 full year of PE during their 9th grade year and at least a semester in each of the following years. I propose that for students in 10th through 12th grade, participating in one after-school sport should fulfill that requirement. The goal of a PE class is to inspire students to be active, and having this class certainly does do that for some. But as student athletes, we've already got that down. We're at practice 5 to 6 days a week for upwards of an hour each time. And being at practice every afternoon cuts into our time outside of school to explore other interests. Not having to take a PE class would allow us to take a new class in school, like ceramics or political science, or explore our interests at a deeper level, like taking an AP Science course, which includes an extra lab block. Or we could even just get some homework done during that time. All this being said, I want to clarify that this proposal would not remove physical education completely from our curriculum. I think there's a difference between physical education and health class, and that's why I think keeping our 9th grade requirement to take physical education, which includes a semester of health class, should remain a requirement to provide adequate time to cover topics like mental health, substance abuse, and relationships. And this proposal is not out of the ordinary. There are already so many schools in the area that have implemented similar policies, like Littleton and Brookline High School. And I would be happy to work with you all in adapting their framework to meet the needs at AB. Student athletes are one of the largest groups on campus. There are over 160 kids on the track team alone. And making this change would allow us to come to school better rested, well prepared, and ready to be engaged learners and competitive athletes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to make a comment? All right, I will note that for the public, Shaylin did send a email to the entire committee about this topic, and I have spoken with the superintendent about this, and we've asked him and the principal at the high school to look at modifying the program of studies for next year in response to this request. So if the committee would like to discuss this, let me or Tori know, and we can put it on an agenda in the future. Otherwise, if you're happy with the direction of having the school administration look at taking some action on this and presenting to us next year, then they'll continue on that track. Excellent. Thank you, and thank you for all of our students for coming to present this evening. I'm sure your parents are quite proud of you, as are we. Yep. So we are going to take a little bit out of order because I see we also have our friends from ABSAF here. So why don't you come forward, and we'd be happy to hear about the presentation and the work that ABSAF has done this year.
Hi, and thank you for having us. That was a tough act to follow. You kids are amazing. And you know, I get the pleasure of working with these students here. So without further ado, I'm Trish Hashem. I'm co-president with Heather Lammy, president of ABSAF. I was 6 years on the board, and I'm stepping off. We have new energy coming on board, so I'm excited for them. And I'm going to let these ladies do the talking, and we're going to have a nice check to present.
Hello, everyone. I'm Victoria Thermidor.
I'm Maggie Wren.
And I'm Ashley Harrington.
And we are student members of the ABSAF board, and some of the things that we help out with are primarily fundraising, but also things like social media and just promoting ABSAF as a whole. And we're very proud to present this check to you all today of $34,500. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. And I'll just point out, if you could shut that microphone off, then we'll stop getting the ringing. Thank you. You'll see in the packet for the school committee and the members of the public all of the amazing things that $34,500 will be supporting at both the high school and the junior high. So thank you very much for all the work that ABSAF does and the donation to our district. We really appreciate it.
I just also want to express my gratitude to all of you for all of the work you've done. The last probably 5 years have been an extraordinarily challenging fundraising environment, not just for ABSAF, but for just really any nonprofit organization. With donations being down, it's harder and harder to get people to come out to things. And the fact that you can continue to invest in our schools the way you do, just huge debt of gratitude that we have for everything that you've done and given. So congratulations on your graduation. And thank you for all that you do. And we would love to get a picture right over on that same wall.
All right. If you wish to, you may escape now, unless, of course, you're one of the 11 members plus Peter who are at this table, in which case you're in for the long run. And with that, I will hand it over to Peter for Superintendent's update, please.
Thank you, Adam. I thought what Adam was going to lead with was you can escape now unless you want to listen to the superintendent talk. I want to start off by just expressing huge congratulations to the class of 2025. They will be graduating tomorrow night. We are watching the weather to see what that's going to bring. We have, thunderstorms in the forecast for about graduation time, so we're going to wait until tomorrow morning before we make any decisions about what to do with that. I also just want to again say congratulations to all 23 of our retirees, not just the ones that were here tonight. We definitely wish them the best. We had 11 student athletes that we want to congratulate for their commitment to academic and athletic careers at the next level. We had an absolutely fantastic signing day event at the high school for those students. Athletic Director Jim Scanlon, who you saw last meeting as he visited, just did a really nice job just doing a celebration of our students and their accomplishments. So congratulations to all of our athletes. I also want to congratulate 4 of our students, Rohan Borad, Catherine Wang, Tanya Singh, and Ariana Dennis, who were top scorers in Community Education's 2024-25 Math Olympiad program. We had over 100 students in grades 4 through 6 participate in the activity, which takes place across the country and in 39 additional countries. We have a number of celebrations that go on this month. We have Flag Day, Father's Day, Juneteenth is coming up, which is a no school day, just as a reminder. We also are celebrating Pride Month for the entire month, and Eid al-Adha is also this month. So we'll be sending out some information on each of those holidays and celebrations to our families. We're going to be hearing from Vision of Graduate later this meeting, so I won't talk about that now, but that will be going out to families. Do want to give a bit of a strategic planning update and then turn it over to any committee members who would like to fill in additional information. We held our first meeting of the Strategic Planning Committee on May 27th. The committee, comprising school committee members, educators, parents, and leaders, discussed the need for a new strategic plan. The plan is going to be focused on meeting students' needs in a period of declining enrollment and limited resources. District Management Group will assist in developing the plan, focusing on stakeholder engagement, data analysis, and creating actionable strategies. The committee emphasized the importance of transparency, public records compliance, maintaining community trust. Future meetings will delve into stakeholder engagement and strategic planning frameworks, aiming to present final options back to this committee by December of 2025. The second meeting of that committee is scheduled for this coming Tuesday, June 10th at 6:30 p.m. here in the Admin Building Auditorium. We're going to be discussing the district's mission, vision, and theory of action, communication, as well as focus areas for any potential reorganization of the educational programs. People can stay up to date on our school website and also learn more about our agendas on our school committee meetings page. We will be sending out a budget update. You have more information in your packet. I don't want to talk about all of that, but I do just want to highlight some positive news. The district's credit rating was reaffirmed at the highest level, which is AAA, by Standard & Poor's in anticipation of the final borrowing for the Boardwalk Campus project. The district received bids on all of those bonds. The lowest bid was at a 3.03% interest rate for 10 years. This is a lower interest rate and a shorter borrowing period than we originally planned, so that is going to be saving taxpayers money, so we're pleased to be able to report that. Also really excited to be able to share this news, but beginning June 30th and running through August 8th, we will be having a Summer Eats program, which offers free lunches to youth ages 18 and under with no registration, paperwork, or identification required. The program aims to bridge the nutrition gap that many families face during the summer months when school-provided meals are unavailable. Lunches will be available at the Acton Coach Estates here in Acton, Monday through Friday from June 30th through August 8th from 11:30 to 12 o'clock p.m. We do not provide meals on July 4th, and then we have more information on our school website as well. I also will be sending out to families, and you'll be receiving it as well, but as you may be aware, Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey convened a statewide graduation council following voters' repeal of the MCAS as a graduation requirement. The council's currently surveying stakeholders, and we're going to be sending out the link to that survey to all of our families if they'd like to participate as well. This is an incredibly busy time of year around the district with amazing things going on. I am pleased to report that over the course of the year, I actually was able to visit nearly every elementary classroom in the district, which was really exciting. I was actually running around between schools this week because I had like 3 or 4 classrooms at different schools that I hadn't made it into yet. There's a couple that I just didn't get to because the timing didn't work out in our favor, but you know, just amazing stuff happening in all the schools, and we are working on organizing school committee tours of the schools for next fall so that you can get in and see firsthand what's going on in our schools. I was at Gates Celebrate the Arts Night. That was an amazing night. A lot of great artwork by our students. Adam already mentioned the Madrigal Dinner. If you have never been to a Madrigal's dinner, you absolutely need to mark your calendars. They do an amazing job. It's funny. It's like 2 hours of comedy, amazing music, dinner, and just a wonderful way to spend a night. RJ Gray Civics Fair was amazing. I was there yesterday and today, just hearing from our students all the work and research that they've done. And then I had an opportunity to go to the Miriam 6th grade topics fair yesterday, which it was absolutely fantastic to see the work that the kids did and the depth of thinking that they're doing around the projects that they have developed over the course of the spring. So congratulations to everyone. That is just a fraction of the great things happening in our district in June. I wish I could be at everything, but unfortunately things like budget and school committee stuff call at times, so have to try and make it to things that I can get to. But thanks to all of our educators and families for supporting our students.
Thank you, Peter. Any questions or comments? All right. Looking at my agenda, we did miss a vote, so I am going to look for a motion to approve the donation from ABSAF in the amount of $34,500. So moved. All right, Ben made the motion, Vikram seconded that. All of those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? That's unanimous, so thank you for that donation one more time. All right, we're going to move on to our guest and presentations time. So first group that's presenting is the illustrious group of officers that are in the back there. So if you would all like to come forward, we would love to hear our school resource officer presentation for the year. So, yep, you got to press the button to get a red light, and you should have a clicker there that you will be able to advance your slides as soon as they get. There you go.
First of all, thanks for having us tonight. I'm Detective AJ Rotella. To my right is Detective Anna Dapkas, and to my left is Boxborough SRO Officer Reynoso. We appreciate you guys having us tonight to hear us out on what we do on a daily basis and how this year has gone. So what is an SRO? We are school resource officers. We are career law enforcement officers with sworn authority deployed in community-oriented policing, assigned by our employer, the police department, to collaborate with the schools. Essentially, we are visible law enforcement figures inside of school settings. We work alongside of the admin as a resource. We are a member, or at least we like to think of it, as a faculty. We are a community resource. And we are not a replacement for the existing school security, and we are not disciplinary in the schools. Our mission is quite large, but we ultimately want to bridge that gap between the police officers and the young students and people. We want to maintain and improve safety in the learning environment in our schools through the reduction and prevention of school violence and drug abuse. We want to increase the positive attitudes towards law enforcement altogether. We like to teach the value of our legal system, promote respect and for people and property. Ultimately, we want to encourage all of our students throughout the school in every activity, whether it's sports, clubs, bands, dramas, etc. We want to reduce the juvenile delinquency by helping students formulate an awareness of the rules, the authority, and our justice. And ultimately want to break down the stereotype for police. You can see there on the right of the slide is the 9 schools that we have in Acton. I did not put Blanchard on there for Boxborough because it's in Boxborough, but those are the 9 schools that me and Anna cover. I'm primarily in the high school and the junior high, and Anna covers the 5 elementary schools and the 2 collaborative schools that we also have in town. Resources, courses, and training. So on the right side, you can see a large list of the trainings that we get annually. To be an SRO, originally we have a 40-hour course that we have to attend, and that's the NASRO course. And then after that, there's a 2-day training conference every year that we attend, as well as that long list over there with the school summit, we're sexual assault investigators, mental health trained. We have annual training for that, active shooter trainings, suicide prevention, and the list keeps going. I can read through all of them if you'd like. We are ALICE trained, which is our acronym for an active shooter situation. That is the last thing we want to teach. We understand that it's fearful and everything like that, but at the end of the day, we want our students and our faculty and our police officers to be prepared if we ever do encounter something like that. We hope that we don't, but we want to be prepared in the sense of we need to have a plan for everything, right? That's kind of what we do. For crisis intervention and de-escalation, that is also right in our wheelhouse. With mental health issues these days, we see it a lot more in the schools and the young people. So we're extra trained in that. And our department actually has also recently taken on a department clinician who's not here tonight, but she is a great resource for us. We bring her with us to a lot of our calls. If it has mental health involved in it, we bring her along with us. She just brings so much more experience and resources to those calls. Where am I? So I did actually, one of the students brought up the classes today where they were actually looking for other things in the school for healthy relationships. We actually do teach the 9th grade class that. We work alongside with DVSN, which is the domestic violence, and we go into the school, we teach the whole 9th grade class over a couple weeks, and we ultimately am teaching that and to make students aware of the signs and symptoms of an abusive or healthy relationships. I also teach in a course to the 8th grade students, which is internet safety and crimes online. With social media being, the leading cause of everything these days, we see scams, we see extortion, all that stuff on Snapchat, Discord, Instagram, Facebook, and the list goes on. Every time I teach this class, the students are actually informing me on new apps, and now I have to be cool and hip and keep up with them, right? So that's kind of a gist of what we do on that aspect. For community policing, which I think is another huge aspect of our job, is what we do. This is a long list of some of the stuff that we do. We have a youth academy every summer that we do for a week in July. That is for students ages between 12 and 15. And we kind of teach them what police officers do on a daily basis. We let them handcuff me and all that stuff. But we also we're there to have fun, and we're there to show them the side of us that is not just behind the badge, right? We are people as well. And I think that these community events that we do and the outreach programs that we have really get to show that off, which is why the SRO to us is so important, because we do get to build those rapport with the students from such a young age leading up, and building the rapport with the staff and the faculty as well, so they can rely on us to be a decent resource for them when they handle situations that they might encounter for the first time. This year we had four new APs at the high school, and I think it was a really good opportunity for us to become closer and have that rapport of, they haven't seen a lot of situations before in that position. Most of them were teachers beforehand, but they were never in that role. So it was good to bounce ideas off each other and just use each other as resources. And lastly, we take senior interns. We had 3 this year for 3 weeks. They were shadowing me and Anna for 3 weeks, which is just a great opportunity to also show what is going on behind the scenes instead of what they see in the school when we show up for a call, right? And these are our year-to-date statistics. Since the beginning of May, when we put this together, we had 0 arrests within the school system. We had 0 shelters in place, knock on wood, right? There's a couple more weeks left of school. We had about 12 medicals, 3 restorative justice referrals, and that's where we had cases of students that and it might even trickle into the outside of the school hours. That's another thing, is that we work 24/7 realistically. So if something happens at home and it gets brought into a school counselor, they'll call on us to also help facilitate that way, because after school hours, they need another resource. So those 3 cases were of students that found themselves in a little bit of trouble, and instead of just, charging them and sending them right to court, we have a restorative justice program where we are able to sit down with a group of us, so it's us and the facilitators for that company, and we basically have a circle, and we educate the student that made the mistake. We let them do community service. We let them write a letter of apology to the victim that is involved in that case, and we kind of work through it that way. And it's monitored all through the C4RJ program, but depending on which officer is involved, we'll sit in on that circle to help as well. We had 14 mental health calls at the school where, again, we bring the clinician in if we can. Digital misconduct is where students are using their phones inappropriately. We see this, I've been seeing it a lot more lately with that transition from junior high to high school. It just is what it is. The apps they're growing every day. The technology, AI, all this stuff is just tricking students. There's a lot of scams going on. So we see that often. We had 10 weapons reports where we're all transient in the sense of what was happening, which is hence the no shelters in place. But some kids get gifted they're a Boy Scout or a Girl Scout, and they get gifted a Swiss Army knife from their grandfather, and they bring it in because they think it's cool, right? And that is just one example of what we might deal with. We had 10 vandalism reports of just stuff being drawn on the walls. We had 5 accidents, and it's not only students. Sometimes a teacher might back into somebody in the parking lot, or a bus might sideswipe a car trying to squeeze by the tight roads up there. And then the last one there is a big number. You see 80, but that is also just for follow-ups. We have people that accidentally call 911. We have meetings, traffic control, a lot of larcenies out of a locker room, which are very difficult to solve because there's no cameras in locker rooms, obviously, but people will report missing AirPods or backpacks. And then we do drills at the school, right? Fire drills, bus evacuations, the Alice drills, and every school has to do a certain amount of those, and we're always present for those drills as well. So that's just in that 80 number. That's all I have really today. We're open to any questions, or if you want to hear from the Boxborough side beforehand. But again, thanks for having us.
Thank you. Yeah, we'll go with the Boxborough presentation next, and then we'll open it up for some questions from the committee.
Hi, everyone. My name is Diosmar Reynoso. You guys can call me Ray.
Hold on just a second.
Oh, that's not your PowerPoint.
Oh, that's not mine.
They have
There you go.
All right.
Start from the beginning? Hi, good evening. My name is Diosmar Reynoso. I go by Ray. Officer Stillman, who also an SRO for my department, is not here. He had a family matter to attend. So I've been in office for about 4 years, Boxborough about a year and a half now. Became an SRO last year. It's been a great experience so far. I'm still learning the job. I apologize, my PowerPoint's not as fancy as Acton, but I got like 5 slides, 6 of them, and then go from there. So also Sergeant Gath is also an SRO, but he wasn't here, able to make it as well. So here we got some of the training that Sergeant Gath attend. He's been in the job for 15 years. Like I said, 4 years, Officer Stillman over 1 year. If you can see on the slide, I went to new child abuse investigation training. I'm still gotta get more training, to be fully certified. I'm certified, but to get their experience, I'm not there yet. Topics we cover before in the class like juvenile, child assistance, emotional intelligence. Like one of the students mentioned today, they got to a lot of stress, even though when they middle school, when they don't have the resources or anything like that, they got a lot of homework to do. And then, sometimes you can see them, you ask, hey, how's your day going? They tell us, and then we kind of guide them to the right direction, help them out. Some of the topics that the training includes initial response, recognizing signs of abuse. We don't try to, was the parents are the abuser. We just, go to the DA. They're the one handle all that stuff. There's more like interview the child, victim, witnesses, any adult, suspect. we got also the type of abuse and the investigation action that we gotta take, which is everything has its own way. Everything's different. The SRO are able to connect with students. Myself, work 3 to 11s and overnights when nothing's happening. You know, we do sometimes school crosswalk and Blanchard School. I go when I see the kids in the playground and just talk to them. Some parents are like, oh, what's happening? Like, no, I'm just playing with the kids. Right now here, I always carry stickers that I have with the kids. They see this, they just, so I hand it to them, they just love it. They put it on the chest and like, oh, can I get one for my brother and sister? I'm like, here you go. And they just like it. I always carry those with me. I can give them out if you guys want them. Officer Stillman works day shift. He usually go inside the school, talk to the kids, eat lunch. You can see most of the stuff there. He does during the day, play outdoor, game recess. He also gets stickers from me, give them out and stuff like that. And when we have a new officer in the department, we go into the school so they get a go of the layout, also meet teachers and faculty and the students as well, so they familiar with the new face in the department as well. So this is the training allies officer. What's your name again? Sorry. Rotella. I mentioned. It breaks down what the training's about and stuff like that. He mentioned pause, evacuation, panic alarms, and well-being checks. And after this slide, you're going to see the events that we do as well and the times we've been to school and stuff like that. So this is a career event. Done almost all of them. In the picture you see there is myself and Officer Stillman. He's still taller than me, which I was tall too. The picture up in the middle, that was last year during the toast truck at the library. Kids were, touching my stuff. I said, what is this, what is that? They're curious about what I have on, and they went from there. The picture of the mug, which is the coffee and a donut, which is funny. That was during the summer recreation at Flare Field. There were a bunch of tents and then tables. Kids were having different things to do in each table, so I sat with them and went back and forth. This girl, it was funny, she drew me a donut and a cup and she gave it to me. So that right there is my locker. It's been there since last year. Thinking like, hey, I'm gonna keep this in memory of what happened that day that I met this person. So next year or next year after, like, hey, I still have that donut you drew, it's in my locker. So it's stuff that, memory you create with them. This is yearly statistics for as of May 28th this year. The left show activity, we interaction with the students, in total 18 times, drills, we did it 2 times, discussion with faculties, twice, career event 2 times, call for service 3, new officer tour of the school, that was 1 time, the SRO training, that's 4, well-being check 1. You can see the arrest, citation, and court referrals. Like you mentioned earlier, we don't try to arrest teenagers, juveniles, because the things, we don't want to create that negative environment where now they say, oh, my life is over. We just want to, give guide into the right direction, stuff like that. Resources is basically the main focus that we want to be there for. What else? And that's about it. Any questions?
Excellent. Thank you all very much. I will just highlight that over the course of last year, we did have a school resource officer subcommittee where we had a group of educators, administrators, committee members, members of the public come together and help to evolve the memorandum of understanding that we signed with both communities, Acton and Boxborough. And so one of the aspects of that MOU was that we did get a presentation every year from the SROs to sort of share about the work that they're doing in school. So that's why we have this here and now. With that, I will go around the table. Questions? Glenn and then Liz.
Hi. A few thoughts and a question. I do approve of how much training there is. I understand. I think that's above and beyond what is technically required for school resource officers, I think. But one thing I'm wondering is how much is the presence of social media covered in things like for sexual assault training? Like I know sextortion is quite it's an increasing problem, especially on Snapchat. So I'm wondering if training covers stuff like that. And then my last question, could you just expand on bullet points 2 about how you go about trying to implement a reduction of school violence and a reduction of drug abuse. When I was a kid, I was in DARE, and my understanding is that the research showed it wasn't quite effective, at least in the early 2000s. So I'm wondering if that's been iterated upon.
Yeah, so for the first one of the trainings, we do more than what we're required. We're lucky enough to have that opportunity where we get emails every day about potential opportunities to take these trainings. So if we're available and we're allowed to go, whether it's free or can get paid to go, we will do whatever we can to get those trainings. And to touch on the topic of the social media trainings, we are going to more social media trainings. So they are now being more prevalent where they weren't before. It's kind of, they're moving with the times, right? The technology is just, and AI is taking over right now in social media, in the social media world, that they're now creating these extra opportunities to get those trainings. So as those comes out, we do attend those. I've been to a couple myself. I know Anna has as well. And that's just something that we keep our eyes on. So when we do see those opportunities to take those trainings, we will go for that. And to go back on the DARE topic, so DARE, I also had DARE growing up in schools. I know that we don't specifically do that. When I teach the internet safeties, it's in the digital literacy classroom. I try to touch on everything I can, whether it's not directly about drugs and stuff like that, but when we have these calls at the school, vaping is a big topic that we deal with often now, whether it's a weed pen or a nicotine pen. When we have these calls and it's handled, the discipline is handled within school, but then we will be called in sometimes to speak with the students, with the counselors, and kind of just tell them of, the do's and don'ts of what are these, how they're affecting your body, your anxiety, right, your sleep, all these things. So as we learn it in trainings, we're trying to pass that along to the students. I would be open to creating a DARE class myself and able to teach that class. I know that, with the MOU and working through the past year and everything, we've been trying to follow guidelines and stuff like that, but I think that's a great idea to kind of work the DARE aspect back into the schools, because these students have, it's very accessible to them, right? They're getting it, they're selling it at gas stations now, and they're not all getting ID'd. So I think that it's a great topic to teach the students.
Liz, and then Andrew.
I want to start by thanking all of you for being SROs. I think that it's a really important part of the day for the students, and I really appreciate the work that you guys do. And for Boxborough, I know this was our first year of being, officially in a memorandum of understanding. I think that it's been very positive, at least for my Blanchard kids that come home. They're always very excited to see Officer Ronaldo and Stillman. I did have a question, and this is more directed at the Acton SROs, is with the newer, beefier MOU that we had drafted and that you have now had the opportunity to be going along with, have you found any significant changes, either positive or negative?
I know that it's new, so we're still working through it. There have been a few difficulties when it comes to, we get a call about something that happened and we can't, the school can't share if that child has cognitive delays or anything like that, and then we have to kind of go back to figuring that out ourselves. So sometimes not having some of the information that we need to proceed on a case where there might be something serious can be a bit difficult. There have been a lot of positive in regards to having that guideline and knowing, what to share and what's okay and what's not. I would honestly have to kind of go back and think about, different situations and things that we've encountered. But I know that sometimes going to the school and for them not to share, if there is something we should be aware of when we talk to a kid, because they could present one way, but there could be more. And I just wish I would have that information, because we try to work with the kids. We understand that there's different things going on with them that we might not be aware of from the report that we get. But again, we are there in good faith to help them and to use a lot of the things that go on as a learning experience and teaching them. So sometimes, it's difficult when we don't have a lot of the information that I think would help us with just handling the situation. You're welcome.
Thanks, and thank you again. It's obvious your passion for all this. I was curious about two areas within the report, the digital and the larceny stuff. But more specifically, could you tell us about the process that you take from when you learn something's going on to what you do to how the result ends up? How did these things come to you, and recognizing that as an SRO, you're not the school police force? Where's the line drawn, and how do you react with these issues as they pop up?
So the school has their own policies and everything else. So if it's happening in school and it's school-related, the school will handle it. They might run something by us. It doesn't always mean that it'll end up, becoming a case or becoming something that is serious. We try to be there and be part of the process to educate the kids and to let them know, like, this could potentially lead to something else. Or, if you had done this in a different place, things could be different. So, it's case by case, depends what it is, but there is a lot of conversation, and we always, again, we try to think about the child and, what the best outcome is depending on what occurred exactly.
The question I had is, how are you brought in during one of the issues that you sparked earlier? So you talked about, larceny is one, digital issues was another, vandalism is a third. As these things occur inside the schools, how are you brought in versus the school policy, the school administration versus the police on a more official basis?
So for vandalism, if it's anti-Semitic, we're obligated to get that report, so they have to let us know about those cases. So typically, will handle it in school. The principal, majority of those vandalism ones happen within bathroom stalls. I don't think we had any this year that weren't in a bathroom stall. So when they're reported to the faculty or the staff, the principal will go in, he'll take a photo, or she will take a photo of it, have the janitors remove it from the walls, and then they'll forward us the report of saying, we found this on the wall, there's no suspect because there's no cameras in bathrooms, but they try to work around, like, they do their due diligence on seeing, can we figure out what time it was, when was it reported, we know that it wasn't on here at this time, and they forward that information to us. We take it, and we need, on our side, we have to file that with the DA's office. They track everything now on that topic. For larcenies, we've had bikes stolen from the school, where during the school day, or there used to be a security officer that actually was in charge of the cameras and everything, which they no longer have, and that is now kind of my job, where if there's a bike stolen, the school will take the initial report, and then I will follow up. I'll watch the film to see if I can see someone taking the bike, and then we kind of work back from there. Typically, if it's the school day, we will relay information to the counselor or the APs, and they'll kind of handle it what they can in school. If it's outside of school hours, we will follow up with families. The parents will call the parents in, not call them, I'm sorry, we will call them on the phone. We'll talk to them. A lot of times these bikes and these AirPods are not found, though, also. It's difficult to find the AirPods when you don't know where they're stolen from. Some bikes, we do find the bikes, and then we find the bike just abandoned at a different area, right? And again, for us, to make it criminal, there needs to be a victim. If you steal somebody's bike and the victim is like, I want to press charges, then we have the police authority to go ahead and press those charges. If there's no victim, we will actively seek out that restorative justice avenue to make, to give these students a chance, right? We understand that kids are going to make mistakes. We all made mistakes growing up, I'm sure. And that's kind of our mentality going into it. So typically, the school will get the report initially, and then they'll pass along to us. And when it reaches that criminal threshold is when we can actually take action. Otherwise, like I said, we're not disciplinary. We're not going to give them a detention, right, or anything like that. So if it can be handled within the school, they do so, and they kind of just keep us in the loop as needed.
Thank you.
Yep.
Hi, thank you for your service. I just have a question. So I assume the wellness check is for if students missing school absent, then the school will contact the family and or send a SRO to the family's home. Is that correct?
Yeah, so not so much for truancy anymore. We don't, if someone just skips school, they will call home and stuff like that. But if there's some type of a health reason or they're worried and there's a reason and there's a safety issue behind it, then we will go do that well-being check to make sure that everything's okay at the home. But when we go there, we will just speak with the family and the students to make sure everything's okay. We aren't essentially taking them and bringing them to school. I believe that's how it used to be done, but that's not how we do it anymore. We are now more so just making sure that the well-being of the student is okay. And of course, if the student misses the bus and the families don't have the means and the parent is okay and the kid wants to go to school, we were more than happy to help the students out in that aspect. But we are not going there for, get in the car and go to school. It's more so of just want to make sure everything's okay. Do you mind calling the school? Then the parents will typically call the school and say, sorry, we forgot to excuse them today or such as that.
Are the families allowed to decline a well-being check? Or
I'm sorry?
Are they allowed to decline a visit from the SROs?
I'm sure they would be allowed to, but they typically aren't answering their phone. The school will call home before they send us. If there's a safety issue and they're worried about the well-being of the student and there's no answer at home, that's when we get sent.
Okay.
We don't get sent if the family answers.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ben?
Again, thank you for your service. One question or comment I have is I'm looking at the statistics for year to date. Do you have any comparative statistics from the year before to show us if there are any trends with mental health or with vandalism and anti-Semitism, whether it's going up or down?
So this is the first year that we've specifically tracked everything that we do in a log. We've also switched over our system for work. So when we call out at the school, I'll call off and say, I'll be out at the high school for XYZ. And it's logged that way, and that's how we're getting these stats. So that is something that we are actively doing now in order to track these stats. So I don't have numbers off the top of my head or anything like that. I'm sure we could go back and kind of decipher it, but that's kind of what we're trying to do moving forward on a yearly basis.
Then for perhaps for next year, having comparative statistics I think would be really helpful for this group. Thank you.
Definitely.
Hi. I've never been a proponent of having police officers in school. However, seeing you guys sit here and talk, I think my mind is changing somewhat. And so that brings me to my next thing. Part of the outreach here is sort of like, to have kids not be afraid of police officers, right? And sort of, you know what I mean? Sort of dull those edges and smooth those things. But isn't that kind of a two-way street? And do you guys find, like, working with children, that you yourselves, your temperaments are sort of changing in how you view society? Do you find that also changing?
Yeah, I think that it gives us the opportunity to see things in a different light, where if you're a patrolman on the street and you're going to all these hot calls, you're kind of going in there, with heightened situations where we're actively there all the time. We're seeing people, we're friendly with the staff, so we feel welcomed there, and it doesn't feel like we're there to be this figure. We're just there as people, and that's one of the things that I like about it is that, kids are walking down the hallway giving us high fives, right? And that's just different when you're out on the street. So I do think that being in this position specifically has made us expand our vision on everything and where it stems from. And I think that's why the elementary school is so important, because you get to get in to all those students, and then you get to see them grow up, and then you're excited for them. We get to watch them graduate. We work all these school events. We go to school dances. We go to the prom. We're doing internships. We do project graduation where we're there all night. And they're riding the mechanical bull. They're doing the hypnotist and all this stuff. So it's just definitely for me personally, I'm sure they can attest to it. It's just a great position. And, the reason I'm in this position is because when I was growing up, my mentor growing up was actually the school resource officer and my football coach. And it kind of led me down this path altogether. So for years, this is kind of what I've wanted to do. And I think that, it just shows when you're the SROs and the positions, like, you want to be here and you want to do that. And I think that it just helps all around.
Leela, and then I've got no, please.
I appreciate y'all for coming here. The mission statement, particularly Acton one, was pretty broad. There was a lot going on there. So I was curious how you were measuring the impact of your program and you being in the schools on, like, climate, behavior, safety, and how you track some of that.
So this is my 4th year, I believe, in the school as the SRO, and I have just seen it get better over time. I'm not taking credit for that at all. I don't think it's me. I think it's the staff. I think it's just the world in general, right? The whole climate of the school has just been different, I guess. It's hard for us to gauge that specifically on what we're doing. I think that that's where the evaluations and the feedback is great. I think that's kind of why we're here as well, because I'm sure you do get feedback that we aren't hearing, or feedback from the principals that they can offer. I know that working with them, they do feel that it's a great resource to have us, and I think it's a great resource to have them as well. So I feel like the climate has changed in the sense, but I also feel like I am getting more, building more rapport with everybody within the schools just from the experience of being in the schools. So it's hard to gauge how we're doing on our mission statement, but I think that that is our goal no matter what every year, because every year we got new kids coming in, we got transfers, people moving to town, and that mission is for every student, whether we've met them once, met them 10 times, or meeting them for the first time.
I had a question for Peter about this.
Go for it. And then we'll go to Lakshmi.
In the MOU, it talks about an annual review with you, the chief, and the SRO. Did that happen?
So the chiefs both sent me, they worked throughout the year to update the annual review process and the forms. So they've sent that to me, and we have not yet sat down to do the annual review. I personally would prefer to get through all like the leadership team and principals and things like that, and then probably talk after.
Thanks for the presentation. It's very reassuring. We usually fill in the blanks for what we believe in. This was good. The question is, you said you work with students, go back and try to earn their trust or build that relationship. So my question is around the kids who tend to deviate and get into trouble. How effective are the whatever training or whatever methods you use to build that trust back with them once that has kind of been destroyed? When they get into trouble, they obviously, it goes against that, right?
Right, and I think that's where, I do think that the restorative justice piece is huge for us. Instead of just knocking on a door and saying, hey, here's a summons for court, right? That's going to build that bad rapport in general. We're trying to work with these kids and give them that extra opportunity to fix what's going on, right? Whether mischievous behavior or not, they're going to make mistakes, and we understand that. So I think that they respect that. So we do have some students that we might frequently deal with, but I haven't had that disrespect that I've seen in the past. I think that it's kind of changing, whether it's what they're learning as they're growing up, or it is us being in the schools at the younger age. It might be that as well, or seeing us more frequently. It's great that I get the whole 8th grade class for the internet safety and all that, and then it's great that I get the whole freshman class, which I understand is the same people, right, as they move up. But now that I've been there for 4 years, I've had almost every student in the school. So I think that they have had that opportunity to meet me, talk to me, ask me questions if they're comfortable. A lot of them don't, right? They say hi, they nod, or they wave, but there's no disrespect, which I think is important. And if there was, I think that would be the opportunity for me to kind of work more actively to prove that we're not that bad figure, and that we can just be a resource or a mentor or a friend, right? I understand that kids don't want to go home. When they go home and something bad's happening at home, they don't want to come to school and tell their English teacher what's going on at home. So I would love to be that resource for them to feel comfortable to talk to me. And that's kind of one thing I tell to everybody when I do meet them, as I try to be approachable and to bridge that gap between us.
I actually want to play off of that a little bit, because when we were sort of talking about how we envision this program, a lot of the concerns that we heard were around students who might be uncomfortable for any other reason outside of what you've been doing around the presence of officers in the school. And so I'm curious, how do you sort of perform those duties but also respect the fact that there are some students and some parents who might not be comfortable with having you in the school? How do you balance those two?
So for me, when I get, when I get that read of the room, when I read the room and I can tell that there's that kid that, I make an attempt, I try to be very friendly, but if they turn it down, I keep it moving. I don't give up on that kid, but, I try to fill the room and understand, and I understand, and I explain it too sometimes when they do ask me a question or two that, I don't know what their experience has been, but, I can be different, like I am different. Like, how can we help? Like, what can I do? I do love like going to the elementary schools because going in there and the kids see me at lunch, they're like, oh my God, it's like, I'm a superstar and I'm going there. But yeah, no, I think that it is very important for us to be aware and know that we are going to have those times where, there are kids that don't want to deal with us or don't want to see us. And we do have parents that might not want to speak to us or might not want their kids to speak to us, but we respect it. And like, we work through the MOU, we work with the, administrators to get permission every time we speak with a kid. Even if the kid does want to speak with us and the parent doesn't, then we'll let them know, like, sorry, like, we need your parents' permission. So we are respectful and we do understand that people have their reasons or, their experiences. And we don't take it personal. I don't take it personal. But I always try to take advantage of every opportunity that I get to change that or make it better, to do something.
Great, thank you. Yeah.
So what I've seen so far is that, I made the case to the schools one time, gave a sticker, meet it the first time. I introduced myself, hey, that's my name, he's Ray. They say, what is that? I go by Ray, make it easier for everyone to remember me. I would say I've been to domestic disturbance and domestic abuse between parents where the kid now, I've seen him before, they remember me, they see my face, you can see that, oh, there's someone I can trust. And I would say, I remember this kid, he's 6 years old, came to me, hugged me, and I almost cried. I'm a father, 3-year-old boy. I would say, back you up, some parents do not like the police officers or when it's in the school, where it happens where the parents sometimes get me angry face, something like that. I don't take it personal. People don't gonna like me all the time, you're a cop or off duty. And when I meet the kids for the first time, I give stickers. They go home, talk to the parents. Hey, I'm Officer Ray. They talk about me all day long. The next time the parents see me, say, "Are you Officer Ray?" They're like, "Yes." My kid's always talking about you now. So they're like, that kind of changed how they perceive and how they look at a police officer. Then now they say hi to me when they see me all the time. So I'm no longer a stranger, but Officer Ray. And then that kind of also, it's a good impact on both ways.
Thank you. I just want to point out that I really appreciate the work that both the Boxborough and Acton Police Department have done to compromise with us on the MOU. I know there was a lot of negotiations that sort of went on there. I also want to thank both towns for supporting the training and the funding so that we can have certified school resource officers. These are officers who are employed by our town, so there are no costs to the district, but you clearly provide an excellent benefit to the students of our community, so I want to thank you for that. And thanks to the chiefs for working with us on this. And, remind everybody this is year one of the MOU, so always evolving. Any school committee members who have feedback, please feel free to share that with Peter so that we can make sure that this program continues to evolve and improve. So thank you all very much for coming this evening. All right, up next is the Special Education Parent Advisory Council providing their annual report, and I'll welcome up Amanda Bailey and Abe Gutierrez. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. So I'm Abe Gutierrez, one of the co-chairs for the Special Education Parent Advisory Council.
Amanda Bailey, another co-chair of the SPEDPAC, or the CPAC rather. Wow. It's late. It's been a long year. So thank you very much for having us. Abe's going to start us off.
So our mission is to ensure understanding, respect, support, and the appropriate education of all children in our community. The CPAC serves in an advisory role to the district on matters related to both the education and safety of students with disabilities. Additionally, we meet regularly with school officials to discuss the district's special education programs, which include participating in planning, development, and evaluation of the programs as well.
So this year, we had a number of ways that we engaged with the district. As per the CPAC procedures, we met regularly with the special education leadership, our interim director, and our assistant director regarding programs, the process of adopting the new IEP form, staffing as an ongoing issue. We served on a number of district-level committees, particularly the chronic absenteeism task force work. It was great to follow up on the Student Opportunity Act plan feedback that we submitted to the district and be able to see that through. We're excited to be part of the strategic planning and reorganization steering work. We sit monthly with the joint PTO to help engage with other parent leaders in our community and share information about how things are going. And then we also do have a rolling feedback form where families can submit the names of staff and administrators who've really made a difference for their children. And we're able to follow up with them and just give them that acknowledgement and CC their supervisors. And it means a lot to be able to collect that feedback and share it with our educators. With regard to advocacy, you may have seen us around the budget a bit. We did some work again on documenting the ongoing access issues with PowerSchool. We're going to follow up with that in our parent guardian survey next year just to touch base about, are people able to access their students' records? Are they able to get to those IEP progress reports easily? Do they know where to find them? We also are following a number of emerging trends, the competency determination requirements at the state level, and one of our big accomplishments this year was the development of the inclusion recommendations. During COVID and afterward and in between our long-form surveys, we adopted a feedback form model to quickly capture information from our community to be able to bring information back to administrators about what was going on in people's experiences. We expanded this process to target big issues that were identified through the surveys or in conversation with folks. For a long time, it was like the tale of two disabilities where dyslexia and autism kept bubbling up to the surface. So we used our feedback process of having a listening session, an online form, and then gathering that and creating recommendations for the district around those topics. Those documents are then able to be used for advocacy to document what is working well and areas where things might be improved. In order to do that for the inclusion piece of this, we had to first define inclusion. And for our purposes, we landed on inclusion being students with disabilities being part of and participating meaningfully in everyday activities with non-disabled peers. We really want to stress that this is individual. This can look very different individual to individual, and it has to be done in, we'll talk in a minute about free appropriate public education. We use this graphic in our report to start to delineate the different, what we actually mean by inclusion and how that looks. If we were to take, for instance, an example of segregation, where we have students with disabilities bubbled off, that might be vans pulling up to the back of a building to let all the students in the same program out behind the school. Do they all need that? Paula Clue says, anytime they all do something, we've lost the I in IEP, we've lost that individual. So that would be an example of that kind of practice. Thinking about like separate sensory friendly spaces, that would also be segregation, even with best intentions. So thinking about those different ways of how that looks for students. Why does this matter? Even these little things that I'm talking about that don't seem like that big a deal. There's a horrible meme that goes around, and it's something to the effect of when there's one kid with a disability in a class of 20, 19 other kids have the opportunity to learn about difference and inclusion. All 20 of them do. All 20 of those kids are learning about difference and inclusion and what that means to belong. Some quotes that sort of guided our work as well, talking about how authentic inclusion must, be communicated from the top down, that there are often points where things get reset when students transition to a new school, when there are staffing changes, or we fade support too soon. It's unsustainable and exhausting when those efforts come from the bottom up. And that inclusion is more than curricular access. It's about being a valued member of the school community. Everyone has something to offer. When we think about inclusion, there are two principles we want to just sort of educate you about with regard to educating students with disabilities. The first one is the free appropriate public education, that FAPE, that every student is entitled to. The second one is the least restrictive environment. Every student is entitled to access to that least restrictive environment, and we're only supposed to remove them from that general education setting if we've exhausted all of their means of appropriately educating them there, whether it is services, supports, et cetera. It may be appropriate for a student to be in a different setting. That may be a question of fate, but there's one least restrictive environment. It's the gen ed classroom with non-disabled peers. Any other continuum on that placement is a question of what's appropriate for that student. And they might move in and out of those spaces. Our concern is, making sure that we begin in that general education setting and then only pull out when we need to, not place in a substantially separate program, then go, okay, we're going to push you in for SNAC and we're going to push you in for art, but maybe not if you're not having a good day, maybe you have to earn it and things like that. And that's not necessarily happening in every case, but thinking about how do we start from the left side of this and only work out when we need to. And in fact, in the IEP, we have to justify when we're removing a student from that. We have to say why. When we think about the recommendations that we did develop, we put them into 5 key areas, starting with gen ed classrooms. A few quick examples would be teaching about disability history, disability rights movement, teaching peers how to interact with our students who may use augmentative and alternative communication, not using non-disabled peers as the model in social interactions. Everyone, again, has something to offer. At the school level, that might be professional development. We really want to just laud the McCarthytown PTO here. They've done a beautiful job developing a set of inclusion guidelines for running events, which is fantastic to read that document. Thinking about making sure that we're having inclusive events, that we're making sure that students are included in pictures, if they so choose, things like that. At the district level, we're talking about recommending things like an accessibility audit of our facilities, including the high school. Thinking about including out-of-district families in district communications and culture climate surveys. Co-teaching as part of a long-term strategic plan. So just thinking about different aspects of this, and I really encourage folks to go take a look at it. I promise you, you will learn something. And there are some great resources and citations that we've included too.
Our outreach efforts do include having a presence at the back-to-school nights, the basic rights workshops, and in addition to a social media presence, as well as our own newsletter as well. Our outreach efforts have a focus and an emphasis, on reaching families that have younger children with disabilities. This is especially helpful, we've learned, with families that recently move in to the Acton-Boxborough School District. It's one that I can speak to myself as well. The CPAC's priorities for the coming school year, in addition to the ongoing relationship building with both school committee and the district, we do have our communication plan, which it's an iterative process where we adjust to continue to have the biggest outreach that we can for the student population and for families. Workshops and parent-guardian education. This is very, very beneficial for parents of younger children with disabilities, or parents that have also recently have had a child with a recent diagnosis of a disability as well. The Parent and Guardian Survey continues to serve as a source of feedback from families as well, as we know that not everyone is able to attend a CPAC meeting. We have community building with our Friends of CPAC organization as well, and also our engagement in strategic planning and reorganization process. My co-chair had actually said it best, that any effort that benefits students with disabilities benefits all students. And I think that's something that we should try and remember. With that, we want to thank the interim director, Mary Emmons, the assistant director, Dan Mazur, who has been a consistent collaborator with us throughout the year. We welcome Natalia Kirul, who's the new director, and as well the school committee for the ongoing collaboration and support.
Natalia was able to attend our annual meeting and officer elections last night, so it was nice to have her in the room to talk about what we did last year and what we intend to do next year. So it was a really great chance to just get to know her and have her get to know us. We did have our elections last night. You will be seeing more of me. You will be seeing more of Abe. You will be seeing more of Kristen O'Neill in the back there as our third co-chair. We do have openings for secretaries, so if you want to get involved, we'd welcome that. And we did also fill our entire officer slate for our Friends of 501c3 organization. So thank you to those parents and guardians for stepping up to serve.
Thank you both very much. Any questions or comments from the committee? Leela.
Hi, thank you both so much. I know every time we're designing a process or a group to look at something, like we're always like, oh, who's going to be the CPAC representative? Because you all are always really helpful in rounding out the perspectives that we need. And so thank you for constantly showing up and providing some direction. I'm curious how the school committee might be able to support either the work that you're doing or the things that you'd like to see done in the ongoing year.
It's a great question, Leela. Thank you. I think that it's continuing to ask exactly that. Did we talk to the CPAC about this, making sure that we're included, that the multilingual families are included when we talk about these different things, bearing in mind, again, that what helps our kids helps all kids. And we're part of the process when it comes to special education for a reason, including family members and parents in that process. I would say, so ensuring that we're included or continue to be included, celebrating what's going well, I think is really important. I would say staying on top of the policy subcommittee and the conversations that you all are having is incredibly helpful to be able to know, hey, by the way, there's something on the agenda coming up. And I think also just with regard to the budget, continuing to prioritize special education resources and honoring just how great the need remains, and as well as your advocacy at the state level.
Other questions, comments? Glenn.
I just have a comment. As someone that was in special ed myself, I am so glad you're here. Really. I mean, I might have had an easier time in school growing up if there were more people like you when I was a kid. So email me with anything.
Vikram and then Lisa.
I want to say how proud and honored I am to actually be on the liaison for the CPAC committee. And Amanda, I don't think people sing your praises highly enough. I think people are not wholly unaware of what Amanda, I mean, I think we are, but I think it goes beyond. I mean, what you bring to the table, Amanda, is just the amount of good you do for the number of people is just, it's virtually immeasurable. So I want to thank you from everybody.
Just to echo what Vikram said, you're phenomenal. We really appreciate all of the work that you do. And I really particularly appreciate the visual aids in this presentation and kind of reframing how we think about events. I think that's absolutely critical to anything that's done on school grounds or, giant events, a way to include everyone, and it's not having something separate, it's having everyone together. So I really loved that. Thank you.
All right. I have a quick question. Liz, are we signed up to have a school committee table at Pfeiffer's Day?
We sure are.
Okay. So we talked about this a little bit at CPAC last night, and we've talked about this amongst some of the committee members. Anytime I think both the school committee and the CPAC have a great deal of outreach that we want to do over the course of the next year. And so I would extend the invitation for the CPAC to share a table with us at any of those events. So I'll ask Liz, maybe reach out to Amanda or Kristen and see if they've got some folks who are available.
Absolutely. Let's go hang at Pfeiffer's Day.
There you go. Thank you all very much for coming. We appreciate it. Okay. 2 minutes ahead of schedule. No. 9 minutes ahead, 1 minute ahead of schedule. Ongoing business, we're going to move on to our ABRSD Vision of a Graduate presentation. So as those presenters come up, Peter, maybe you want to give just a quick intro of who's coming to speak and what we're about to see? After you get the presentation up.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I'm not going to do too many introductions, but we had an opportunity to pull together 21 students, educators, leaders, family members across the district over the course of this year, and it was just really a wonderful opportunity to get to collaborate with a wonderful, fantastic group of individuals to think deeply about what we want for our students and how we want them to develop as whole people over the course of their time from pre-K all the way through their graduation from Acton-Boxborough. And so I'm not going to do any more talking because I'm going to let three of our representatives. Leela has been a school committee representative on this. And was one of the school committee representatives who kind of helped take us to the finish line by drafting some of the final language. And then, Alison and Sara are two of our educators. Alison's at the high school and Sara's at Conant, who also helped get us over the finish line. And so, they've been involved throughout the process. We wanted to let some of the committee members actually do the talking for us. And I'm really proud of the work that this group did and excited to be able to share it with everyone tonight.
Hi, folks. I'll be starting off some of the presentation about our vision of a graduate work. Just wanting to acknowledge how many people were part of this process. So just in the steering committee, there were classroom educators, administrators. Gabby made a point of saying that she just couldn't fit them all in one column, so she had to split them up. But also students and community members. So this is the guiding question that our community responded to. So we asked, what are the most important skills and experiences our students need to prepare them for success in life and learning? This was the timeline. It's a kind of brief overview. So back looking to our strategic plan, some of this work was actually included in that strategic plan. May of last year, we looked to form a steering committee. In October, there was a thought exchange, which was an online platform that folks could respond to that question that was just up. From December to February, the steering committee was looking at the data that came from it, kind of generating some drafts of what our vision of a graduate might look like, plenty of rounds of iterations. Folks were also throughout this looking at other visions of a graduate to see what it'd be like, where are there places that we might replicate, what is helpful to us. Through this also, there was a desire to engage the community in a deeper way. It didn't turn out exactly how we intended because folks didn't sign up for the thing that we had designed enough. And so there was also this learning kind of around how can we design engagement in a way that folks can and will engage? And so thinking about that as a helpful learning as we go forward in other initiatives and wanting community members to be involved and participating. If you look to April and May, the steering committee reviewed the vision of a graduate, updated it based off of what was heard in the community workshops. Looking to right about now, the community got to see vision of a graduate again. We got more feedback and incorporated it into the working draft. And so that's what you will be seeing today. And here's our presentation. So this engagement process was Thought Exchange, which was that online platform I referred to, as well as in-person workshops. So over 2,400 folks engaged. There were, and each person could contribute more than one idea. And so there were over 2,700 unique ideas, and you also had the opportunity to rate what other people were putting into the platform. So over 58,000 ratings. And then over 50 people actually came in person and participated in workshops to kind of learn together and contribute reflections around some of the drafts that had been developed.
So I'm going to introduce some of the competencies that we narrowed in on for the 5 main, they're called competencies that make up our vision of a graduate. But before I get into the specifics, I just wanted to name them and then just give a couple points of context. The 5 that we landed on are adaptability, communication, collaboration, intellectual curiosity, and integrity. And in response to all of those rounds of feedback and the workshops, including the most recent feedback that we received, we did make a couple of changes to arrive at this final version, one of which was to put adaptability first, and within adaptability to include in the first bullet point, which you'll see in a moment, mental health, that we named that explicitly because it was clear that that was a priority in the community. I also just want to say before we see each one that there are 3 bullet points within each competency. Each one is individually and equally important, and the order of the competencies and the order of the bullet points is also intentional. And we do also envision some growth from one to the next. The vision of a graduate is, of course, intended for all learners in the district to achieve these competencies as they go through AB. And we also want to acknowledge that there are a lot of types of students, there are a lot of types of learners, and the pathways that we will develop to help diverse learners and all of our students achieve these competencies may vary, and we will be developing those specific pathways at a next step. So the language that we developed after, again, many rounds of feedback, lots of drafting and redrafting, we tried really hard to write these in language that students would understand and also use themselves. And the statements are written in a student's voice. So I am going to read them like that. So as a student who demonstrates adaptability, I can demonstrate physical and mental wellness by developing my self-confidence and self-awareness through understanding my strengths, passions, emotions, and needs. I can take healthy risks and use setbacks as opportunities for growth. And I can show resilience by adjusting to changing circumstances and persevering toward goals despite challenges. As a student who can demonstrate communication, I can listen actively to build understanding, engage in conversations with others about a broad range of topics, and convey ideas in multiple ways for a variety of audiences and purposes. Within collaboration, I can seek diverse perspectives to broaden and deepen my understanding. I can demonstrate empathy by respecting the feelings and experiences of others, and I can work with others to contribute to collective goals. I'm going to pass it on for the next 2.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Under intellectual curiosity, this was another area where we received some community feedback, and so we did rearrange the order of these as well. And the first one being under intellectual curiosity, I can reflect on and question my own ideas and think critically about information. A lot of the feedback, or a significant amount of feedback we received from the community was around the importance of being able to think critically, be critical consumers, especially there's been a theme tonight about AI and social media. And knowing that that's what's here today, but what will it look like in 5 years, we want to make sure our students are critical thinkers of everything in front of them. So we moved that one up to the front. And then I can identify effective strategies to expand ideas and navigate obstacles, and I can develop work through creative synthesis and ethical use of resources. In that one as well, in the work that we did as a steering committee and then also from community feedback, there was also a lot of discussion about AI, knowing that we're really at the beginning of it and it's hard to know what that will look like. So knowing that it will play a role in our students' lives moving forward, but that we want to make sure that whatever they create, they are doing so ethically. And so that's why we came up with this language in this area related to AI and whatever else might come in the future. Thank you. integrity. I can take ownership of my actions and decisions. I can demonstrate respect for others, myself, and my environment, and I can understand my role in and actively contribute to my communities. And our language here with the second around my environment and the third around my communities was thinking about this not in one singular way, but in the many different ways that you can look at your environment, like physically the environment, but also the environment around you at any given time. And then recognizing that our students are members of many communities, not just one. Then there's where we go from here. So our next steps with a vision of a graduate is that we'd like to work with student artists to create visual representation. So there was intent in our presentation tonight of only having stars because we'd like to have student input in that next stage. And then communicating the vision of a graduate broadly to the wider community and within our district. And then integrate the vision of a graduate into our strategic planning process. Next will be identifying current practices that support the vision of a graduate and areas to grow. So looking at what we already do and places where we can expand on what we're doing to help meet students achieving these goals. And then identifying pathways for all learners, including diverse learners, and determine how to measure students' growth toward the vision. Alison spoke to that earlier. And recognizing that there is more than one pathway that we can achieve these goals here, and making sure that students understand that and that staff understand that, and we're supporting each other throughout that process. And then knowing that we're always constantly, works in progress, reflecting, celebrating, and then improving along the way with our vision of a graduate. That is our presentation, so we can take questions now.
Before we do questions, I just want to acknowledge we have a number of members of the committee who are also here with us tonight, and I just want to acknowledge them. Yangshin was one of our members of our committee who was with us the whole way. Gabby Abrams was also a member and one of the leaders of this work. We have Caitlin Nealon in the back. And then we have Varun Narella as well. So thank you, Varun. He was one of our student representatives. And Jen Faber as well. Oh, and yes, that's everyone, right? Oh, wait. Did I miss someone? Did I miss anyone? I think I got everyone. Yeah, so thank you so much for being here. And I'll turn it over for questions.
Could I say one more thing? Please?
I guess so. Please.
Thanks. I just wanted to add that it was genuinely one of the most interesting and joyful experiences to be able to have these conversations about this. Going through this district wasn't always an easy experience for me, and I did feel a lot of focus on academic achievement and not really thinking about folks holistically. And so I've really appreciated the opportunity to be part of this process. I think we're really lucky to have these educators here. Our conversations were fun, and I am really glad that we got to this point. So just wanted to add that.
Thank you, Leela. All right, let me see show of hands who wants to go here. All right, we're going to start with Lakshmi, then we're going to go to Andrew, and then we're just going to work around the room here. And Glenn, we're going to come to you at the end since we're going to start with Lakshmi, okay?
Thank you. That was really, really done well. Just looking forward to the next steps where you actually take it to realization. On the paper, the concepts are absolutely phenomenal. Thank you.
As one of the few people in the room who was not part of the team, I just want to really let you know my appreciation for all the work you've done. This is really great. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the centering of your work on the person. I think that's a really important thing. We think about these institutions we're part of to build the institution, but our job is to help these students become the best versions of themselves. And I really think you've caught it in the strategy document, so thank you. I think it's a great step for us moving forward.
Since we're going around, I have a question and a comment. First, the comment is, I really appreciated you giving that context about the order in which the items come. I did participate in some of it, and that had not clicked until now, and as I see that, it really makes a lot of sense. And I kind of hope that as we get some visuals, those visuals will help sort of give some keys to that as well. The question I have, and maybe it's more of a question for Peter, I know that we did send a survey out to the community to sort of get some feedback on how the community responded to this, and I'm curious, either the group here or Peter can share what some of the feedback was as it was presented back to the community in that one question survey.
Yeah, sure. So, we got, we were almost overexcited at first because within a day we had 650 responses to the final survey. And then we looked at the number of individuals who then actually completed it, and it went down. In the end, we had about 110, 150 responses, somewhere in that range, which was still good feedback. We looked at really the top 5 themes that came in. One theme I think that resonated really strongly, that we had some really good discussions at the very end about with our group trying to finalize this, was should the same vision apply to all students? Because there was a lot of feedback around the inclusivity piece of this. And in the end, we felt really strongly that, yes, you have the same vision for all students, and recognize that the pathway and the way that that vision looks in the end might be different for different students. But you don't want to give up on that vision. And quite honestly, we even had some discussion that some of the statements in here could also actually read as goals for some of our students, to be thinking about how they communicate, the ways, things like that. And so, we wanted to recognize and highlight that we didn't want to give up on the singular vision for everyone, but there are different paths to that. A second component of this, I think there was some operational feedback that you heard as well, like how will this be operationalized? I think one thing that feels fairly successful is we had some people who gave us feedback that said, I wholeheartedly agree with this vision. I'm not sure if you'll do it because this sounds like a more classical education than what AB provides. And then we had maybe other people who said, I'm not sure you'll do this because I agree with it, and I'm not sure you're progressive enough to do it. And so to be able to kind of hear from people who may think differently politically, and kind of how society is, to feel like there was something in this vision that they could really relate to for students, feels like a nice unifying force. So I think that was something that came through as well. The 3 pieces of specific feedback where we made adjustments: one, prioritization of mental health. That came back loud and clear in the feedback that we received in the final survey, and that was consistent along the way, so you saw some really clear and strong language around that. Another one was this idea of being able to think critically about information. Some people phrased that around artificial intelligence, and quite honestly, in our discussions as a committee, artificial intelligence is just the next technology. Cell phones were a technology, websites were a technology, paper was a technology at one point, and what we wanted to do were create skills that endured through changing technology and not just latch onto one. And then I think the third one helped me. I'm thinking there were 5. Gabby, can I phone a friend?
I'm happy to be a friend. The third one was really, that was really around the practical application of the work. So the critical thinking piece and the practical application of the learning. So helping students to apply what they learn to a broader context.
Yeah, we added in the words diverse learners. I think it was just in the very last slide. Yes, with the next steps, thinking about what scaffolding might need to be in place for some students. So that was a piece that we knew, but we felt it was important to clearly label that here. I think that was the same with mental health. It was woven in there, but we really felt those were words that needed to be explicitly stated.
And I think, one of the things we were thinking about, and just to actually carry on to kind of CPAC's presentation before, is as we identify the opportunities where we want to grow or opportunities currently exist, and we think about how we're working with students through those opportunities, and as we develop new ones, we want to be doing this with kind of a universal design principle so that these things are accessible to all learners from the ground up. And it's not about you have a vision and then you accommodate that vision for students, but how do you actually design the experiences for all students at that initial stage. So that's why we wanted to include that in some of the language in this slide.
I really appreciate your work on this. It's neat to see the end product and just feel that it is so affirming. The language is just beautifully written. Something else I really appreciate about it is how flexible it is, not just for the the things that we haven't imagined yet for our students, but also, what we've been hitting on with diverse learners. I teach at a school that is competency-based, and while it makes writing narrative progress reports very, very long, one of the things I love about it is the opportunity to look for where are students meeting your competencies and how are they doing it, and recognizing it's exactly what we're talking about. It is often so very different, and it's so exciting to see that there are so many pathways. So I think this just all feels really good to me. I'm curious about process because we've done so many new things here, and I'm wondering what you learned out of doing this, because clearly you've brought so many voices together successfully. And do you have any advice for us as we move into some more of these processes?
I think time, right? Giving ourselves time. In our last large meeting we had, we broke up into groups and kind of workshopped even more based on feedback, and then realized this is not enough time to do the work. More needs to be done. I think Peter stating that he wanted to make sure that we took the time to have a really good product that we were bringing forward was important. And I think as teachers, right, we were going through the revision process just like we teach our students of, there was a lot of condensing and clarifying and a lot of conversation and us having to be flexible with changing things as well.
Yeah, I would just add two things. One of which is the language that we used really did evolve, even if some of the ideas I think we had an inkling of from the start. Which was exciting, but I think it's validating that through all of these rounds of feedback and workshops and brainstorming and getting feedback from the community, that we ended with even stronger versions of those ideas or slightly different ideas because we hadn't thought of how to include what really everybody thought was the most important. I think one of the things that we worked on the most throughout the process was really, like you said, finalizing the language and getting down from what was initially wordy and jargon in a lot of ways. And even when we thought we'd done that, we realized we could do that 3 more times. And so I think that was really helpful, and having students be part of this process was integral to that piece in particular. And I appreciate that you recognize the flexibility of what we've come up with. I think that was another thing that we learned. There were many points at which we had specified more within the bullet points and realized that may box us in and that may leave things out. And so where we envision delineating more specific ideas is in the next step of how will we help students prepare to achieve these different competencies. But we decided ultimately that the vision itself should be flexible and general enough so that it can encompass all of the different things that we would like students to be able to include here. Anything to add?
Go for it. I was just going to add one technical thing I learned was you can't write detailed language in a group of 20. No, really, like you can't. We started trying that, and I think what we landed on ended up being a real learning lesson and a strength in the end, where the whole group had to provide feedback and thought and guidance, but when you needed to actually draft something, you had to put a small team together because you can't have 20 people all trying to write something at the same time. It's just too complicated. And so this notion of going kind of from community feedback to whole group feedback to a team of writers, back to the whole group, back to a team of writers, back to the community, back to the whole group, back to a team of writers, and kind of going through those iterations was actually really successful because, to settle on language with 20 people sitting around a table is next to impossible. But I hope that people in the room feel like all of the thoughts and ideas of that whole steering committee and eventually the whole community were really captured in the final product. The only thing I would add is that I made sure to mention the piece around designing community engagement and it not going the way that we planned, because I think there is an ability to see that people didn't sign up and be like, people aren't interested, people don't care, we might just want to scrap this. But I think re-envisioning like what might be the barriers and how do we approach those and how do we remove some of them is a really helpful approach as we engage in other processes.
Hi, nice to see you guys again. I have a question because I know the educators spend a lot of time after work. We're talking about 11-hour workdays plus some more. A lot of time working on the VOG process. I'm just curious, like for all the time spent, that what was your takeaway from the process?
I think I would echo what Leela said, that it was a really rewarding process. It was really a nice opportunity to work with people from different levels of school. So I work at the high school, but it was a great opportunity to meet and work regularly with elementary and middle school or junior high educators, to meet some people from the community, to engage with students that I didn't already know. And I think once I started serving on this committee, I really did become, I feel like I'm already invested in AB as a school, but I became invested in wanting this vision to represent sort of the best that we can do for our students and the potential that they all have. And so I feel really good about this final version, and I think that feeling means a lot, that after going through all of these steps, it feels good to have been part of the process and to end up with something that, as one of the educators here, I feel like we can really do and implement and represent for our students and with our students and from our students. So
We kind of always joke as educators, you know, we're advocating for our students to have balance, and we're probably really not good at modeling balance. But you know, being an educator, at some times it can also be very isolating because we're around people all day, but we're mostly around students the majority of our day. Yet we work in this massive district. So being able to find opportunities like this one to serve on a committee where you are getting to work with community members, administrators, but then also educators across the entire district is so rewarding. Whether it's this or a book club or another committee you get to be part of, every time I'm part of that, I'm reminded of just how amazing AB is and just the people who I wish I could work with more, but they're, you know, up at the junior high and I'm in the elementary school. But it really helps us see where our students are going and who our students are working with all the way from K to or pre-K to 12. And so I think the more our educators have an opportunity at some point to engage in that cross-district work, the more valuable it is for them.
So first and foremost, I want to thank the members of the subcommittee for this amazing work. Being a parent of a neurodivergent student who has an IEP, who is going on to high school next year, what I read here are his goals, which he articulates himself, and he was not on this subcommittee. So I just want to thank each and every one of you for really taking the time and care and the due diligence to put this together. Thank you.
I'm just so impressed. It's just absolutely excellent. This is excellence, absolute top notch. But in going from here, is this sort of the final thing? And how do you see this implemented? When will we start seeing implementation? And obviously there'll be, I guess, like, you know, iterations about it. And how do you envision its implementation and timeline?
I would start by saying I think a lot of what we already do at every level is already encompassed in this vision. It's not intended to be a completely new addition to everything that is already going on. And so one of the steps in identifying current practices is what do we already do that helps students develop self-awareness and develop the skills to be able to listen and engage in conversations with others at all of the different grade levels. I think once and while we're doing that, we will also see, are there areas within the vision that we are either not explicitly doing or could be addressing more. And once we have identified those areas, I think it will be a question, and what we plan to do is at each grade level or at each school level, how can we effectively incorporate these skills into the learning that is already happening. I think in terms of the end, when students actually graduate, we will have developed ways to measure their progress and then be able to sort of credit them for having developed all of these and achieved all of these goals by that time.
When we were designing the language, we were really thinking about those words that come right after I can as words that could be measurable. So there were a lot of revisions that took place where we said, well, wait, how would we measure? This is a great statement, but is it really measurable? Could you really like point to something that clearly shows you're able to accomplish that? And then also as we were working through the language, I was thinking as through the teacher lens of, oh, I already see aspects of some of this in the second step curriculum that we've adopted, or in the EL English Language Arts curriculum at the elementary level that we're using. So it was this idea of not saying to teachers, here's another thing, but to really look at where it aligns. And so making sure that teachers know that and the community knows that this is really going along with what we have already, and then that part of reflecting, celebrating, and improving. But we're not in charge of the exact timeline.
Sorry, just one follow-up. I mean, what you're saying is that you really enjoyed engaging with other teachers from other grades and other schools, and it seemed that was really like quite a big beneficial thing for everybody across the board. Perhaps there's some way we could do more of that, in some other fashion.
Lisa, do you have anything?
I just wanted to take a moment to thank all of you for your work. I can tell this was a very large undertaking, and I really appreciate it. Honestly, when I'm reading this, one of the things that I'm really thinking about is a lot of people, when they go into education, they go into thinking about making the world a better place, and obviously teaching the students, but also making them better humans, and I felt like this was a really good recipe for that, so thank you.
Glenn, and then we're circling around back to Lakshmi.
So I just wanted to say, well, thank you again, and I just feel like this would be a good vision for the country too in general. One thought I had is could there be student profiles or here's a student that exemplifies communication in its most thing, or at the yearbook at the end of the year, there's here's a student who demonstrated what we mean by intellectual curiosity, or this or that, and it's just an end of the yearbook thing. And if we're looking for measurable things, maybe something more qualitative, where it's just here's someone who did a really good job, and then then everyone gets to go then they can come here and do a little presentation or something. That'd be really sweet. So that's a thought I had. And another thought is just I want to reiterate what Tori brought up specifically, is that this is what was learned here through process and procedure I hope some of that can be implemented in the months-long undertaking of the steering committee for restructuring. I think that this procedure was demonstrated that here's how you absorb community feedback and have it not devolve. So I think being able to have this as a roadmap for gathering and implementing community feedback to implementing policy is just a good thing in the future. And I love the idea of arts, of getting student artists too. That'd be really sweet. And those are all my thoughts, not really questions there, but those are so 2 thumbs up from me.
Thanks, Glenn. Lakshmi?
I think this will be just a question I'm going to leave mostly for Gabby and maybe Peter. So when I see these documents, right, it really excites me. It's really nice. But when we delineate, this is a question, just a thought. When we delineate the kind of capabilities or whatever we want to develop in kids, right? Once we translate these to practices, don't they more or less we become slaves to a kind of a scripted experiences rather than human experiences, because we are now looking at them as layers. We don't look at it in a holistic way. And what that leads to is teachers are constantly worried about that assessment of a kid on those, rather than just being naturally, spontaneously reacting to what the kid needs, which we all have built-in abilities to do that. And I just do worry that by doing this, do we kind of get to that point? I'll leave it there. Thanks.
I just had one thought around that. I appreciate your desire to stay away from scripting exactly what teachers have to do or exactly what students have to be. I think one of the exciting things about this process was the ability to expand beyond just getting all A's, doing APs, right? And so whether spoken or unspoken, I think there already are scripts for what a student should be and excel at. And so I think this is an opportunity to think a little bit more broadly. And so the script is one where there are multiple paths. It's almost like a Mad Libs. So you see where you end up. But I appreciate that concern.
Yeah, I think I understand. I mean, I'm saying this already is an established pattern, but I'm talking about more. My kids went through Blanchard. There was a star thing that they do that, right? I always go back to thinking that, did that really inculcate in them anything that actually is underneath that? They were just parroting, saying, okay, I can't do this, I have to do this. But really did not emotionally grow them. And I think that's the part I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much for that thought. I have so many thoughts that I'll try to organize quickly. I mean, one of the first thought that I have is one that you've often heard me say, which is what gets measured gets done.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I think about is since 2016, so 2016 was the first year of the new kind of generation, the next generation of the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks. It was the science, technology, and engineering frameworks. They were the first frameworks that came out, subsequently followed by English, language arts, and math the next year, social studies the next year, performing arts the next year, where I know I have them all memorized because this has been my life for the last 9 years. What shifted in those frameworks monumentally was a focus on skills-based learning over content. It's really important for me to re-emphasize that, the skills-based learning. So because what became the reality and the understanding is that this world that is in our pocket, having this computer in our pocket where we can access information at light speed, no longer needs to be the focus of the way we think about what schooling is, but rather how to take in information that is so accessible to us and sift through it, and the skills that are involved in navigating this very complicated world because of that. And so what I love so much about this work is that it's very aligned with that notion of skills-based instruction. And I also love what Sara and Alison and Leela said about really knowing where we're at. So if we're prioritizing the notion of communication and collaboration just as two examples, and we really assess the degree to which we see our students on a continuum. And there does need to be some sort of continuum and some clear language around what does success look like around this continuum, what's beginning, I think about the World Language Framework and how it's very proficiency-based. What's the beginning level of understanding of this and where's their journey going? Then we as educators can be very explicit with the development of that skill in a natural setting, right? So responsive in a natural setting, integrated into our units of study. So it's not, we're not stop dropping and saying, okay, now we're going to stop and collaborate. But we're really going to think about the learning in which our kiddos are engaged and assess the degree to which, if collaboration is a prioritized, say, competency in that particular unit of study, the extent to which our students are progressing, and where do we as educators, that's the gift of educators, right? The craft of really helping educators access, their students access greater understanding of content, certainly, but of skills. And so I think this is really beautifully integrated, and because what gets measured gets done, it can be done we have to make sure that it feels organic and natural and integrated. And so that's my blah, blah, blah response about that. So thanks for asking.
Yeah, Lakshmi, I'll close this out too for the whole group. I think whether or not you make explicit what the goals of your organization are for students, there are still goals for an organization. And I think whether they're hidden or whether they're transparent, and I think what this was an opportunity for the community to come together and talk about, in 2025 and headed forward, what is the vision that we have for the type of education and the type of educational environment and classrooms and schools that we want for our students. And I think what we came up with based on what I remember entering the district 7 years ago too, and doing a lot of stakeholder interviews, and I think what we came up with broadly was a very explicit statement that we can hang our hats on, that our schools and our classrooms are about much more than just the academic work that students do, and it's really about students developing themselves as whole human beings and people into young adults that thrive. And I think that's the piece I'm most proud of, and I absolutely recognize that it feels like it might be limiting, but I think it's actually in some ways, based on where we have been, it's a very liberating view of that as well. I would just offer that up. I will also offer as a closing, I want to thank Gabby because she did hours and hours and hours of work behind the scenes to coordinate meetings, get things organized, and really, just a huge thank you to all of our community members, all of our steering committee members who participated in this process. I'm excited about moving forward, and while it feels like we're launching the strategic planning process now, as we've started putting out more information, I actually want to take a minute and recognize the start of this process was the start of the strategic planning process. Because now that we've defined what we want for a vision for our students, now we can start to talk about the vision for the next 5 to 7 years for our schools. And this is the formative document that we want to build everything else off of as we move forward.
All right. Sara, Alison, Leela, thank you very much for your presentation. Got them started. It is. All right, we are plowing ahead. Next item is the approval of the ABRHS Handbook. This is our second read. This was presented to us 2 weeks ago. Peter, were there any changes, any significant feedback since the last time?
No, there were no significant changes. There are no changes. I should say. I think the biggest piece here, I think we recognize, particularly the discussion around the cell phone policy, I appreciate that. I think in the end, talking to Joanie, we didn't receive any additional written feedback to consider. We definitely thought about it a lot. I did ask Joanie, we've been implementing cell phone pockets now for the whole school year in many of our classrooms, just not all. And I asked if they've had any reports of theft, student phones lost. No, we don't have anything like that. So, we haven't heard of those types of issues at other schools where we're getting those concerns. I recognize, kind of the change in feeling that this presents to many of our students and families. And I think having kids put the cell phones in the pockets for the duration of class is something we decided to stay with because we felt it was a step forward overall in creating the educational environment we want, recognizing that one of the hard parts of doing policy is that when you try to do good for the most people, there are people who may not feel like that's working for them. And I think this is one of those situations where we can recognize that while we think it's a positive move forward, there are people who may not feel that way, and I certainly recognize that.
Thank you. All right, any further comment on the handbook or anybody wish to make a motion? Andrew.
Thanks. I maintain that this mandate for cell phone storage in non-student controlled locations is an incorrect policy. Every phone will be under the control of the district, which of course means that every action that happens to those phones will be the responsibility of the district. It opens up the doors for issues regarding student safety, regarding equipment safety, ABRSD liability, and educational authority. On the student safety side, students may find themselves in situations that demand discreet, immediate communication. In the case of an incursion into the school where someone tries to do harm, students will not have the ability to connect to their families if they are not able to get there. They can't get to emergency services or other communications that could be stifled. We perform ALICE drills in the schools in preparation for potential harm as potential defense options. These personal communication devices should be considered in preparation as a potential safety and communication plan. Those examples speak to the physical safety. There's also the need to continue to build a space for emotional safety, personal privacy, and freedom from emotional abuse or harm. There's equipment safety, which is a different question. 20 students using one storage location before and after every class creates the opportunity for equipment to be damaged or mistaken. This potential for damage increases each day and each class as careless habits will form, and placing phones out of the control of their owners allows for unintended mischief and potential peer abuse, which gets us to the ABRSD liability. What is the liability of the school district for damage to this equipment? What's the liability for improper use of the equipment while in storage? As an example, near-field communication, these are the chips that allow you to use Apple Pay when you tap on something, are also set up to work automatically, occasionally sharing files, contacts, photos with a tap. Additionally, multiple financial transactions could occur or be initiated without the consent of the owner simply because of the proximity of devices to each other inside these cubbies. What's the responsibility owned by the district for those whose phones were used without their permission or for ill means? I know plenty of kids inside of the middle school and the high school who grab other people's phones and turn on their cameras on a locked phone and do something with them. It's not difficult to see that mischief could be had for people who want to cause trouble for other kids by taking their phone, doing something to it, and putting it back. But the other question I bring up is the educator authority. By setting a policy that removes the authority of the educator to balance responsibility, device ownership, and the responsibility for education, we're not giving our educators the ability to be able to be in control. Prohibiting phones in classrooms, removing them from the control of their owners also relinquishes the ability of the educator to provide standards for their students in class. I strongly suggest a change to this policy to allow for the storage of phones as an option, but add to the student code of conduct an escalating consequence for improper use in class. Treat this as we would any other infringement to the code, first offense, second offense, third offense, with clear escalating consequences for bad actions. ROs were here earlier talking about their goal is to reduce juvenile delinquency by helping students formulate awareness of the rules and authority and justice. The policy as offered removes the ability for our students to self-regulate, to recognize the rules, to recognize the standards, and it doesn't support the vision, particularly the integrity part that we were just talking about inside this last strategy. I think that this particular piece is really troubling and needs to be adjusted before we can vote on it.
Thank you. Any other comments? I would entertain a motion to approve the ABRHS FY26 handbook.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so that was Vikram with the motion and Tori with the second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. So Leela and Ben abstained and Andrew was a nay. And I'm calling that out only because that's how our minutes are getting recorded now, so that the AI and the person reviewing that can note that. But that did pass, so thank you. Next item on our agenda is the proposed budget actions for school committee approval. Sherry. Yes, we would like you up front too, please, with the microphone on. Thank you.
This is actually pretty quick because I'm just kind of summarizing what we're going to do next week, and we're going to need at least 4 votes from you. You all got it in your packet. Adam, I don't know if you want to. All right. So the first vote we're going to be looking for next week is going to be a transfer of $2.1 million from our excess and deficiency, our E&D account, and we're going to ask that we transfer it into our capital CIP revolving account. So as you might remember, we said we were going to be getting a check from the IRS, which we did end up getting and receiving the check, largest check I've ever held in my hand. It was pretty big. I don't know if you want to show how big it was.
We'll take a pause here. So it was an average sized check, but the value of the check was quite large, so we did blow it up. And I will point out here, this is a check for $2,962,045.45. And included in that, you'll notice down here in the note, there is $210,877.45 worth of interest because the federal government was 352 days late in delivering us this check. So
you hear that, federal government?
Sherry was very amused that they were going to send a real paper check. She did a wonderful job of blowing it up for me. But really, the heroes here were our facilities team, including Kate Cosby. So the whole school committee has signed the big fat check. We're going to present it back to Sherry and the facilities team as our gratitude for doing amazing work and getting us some great rebates on the Boardwalk campus.
And I will make sure Kate gets that check, and I will have her hold on to it because she deserves it very, very much. So We're only asking for 2.1 million to be transferred because when you deal with excess and deficiency, it's the number that the Department of Labor approves for us each year, and we can't take out more than what's certified. So 2.1 is what was certified for us last July. When we do get recertified again this fall, we probably will come back for the other 800 plus and ask for the vote at that time to move that money in as well. And we plan on using that money for future capital expenditures. Mainly, we have some rooftop units at the high school that is going to cost us about $4 million, so we're going to be putting it towards that, so we won't have to come to the towns asking for funding for that, which is a great thing. The next vote, we are going to be asking, go ahead.
Sherry, can I make one more comment on that? Just to also preview for you and, you know, community members who are watching and interested, a lot of the work around state advocacy this year paid off, and that resulted in a significant amount of additional money coming for the current fiscal year, so FY25 that we'll receive before July 1, as well as some more money for FY26 next year. The FY25 money that we're going to be getting between now and the end of the year will be sufficient to more than replenish what is in the current excess and deficiency fund. And so that's one of the reasons why we're moving what we have now into stabilization. We have a massive, massive rooftop project looming over our heads at the high school that is, just that one project alone is a $4 million, you know, venture. And those are currently being, kind of moved along with garden hoses and sprinklers in the summer, literally. We are pretty close to the opportunity to be able to do a $4 million project without having to ask the taxpayers for another dollar. And so by moving this money now, that's going to allow us to do that without any more cost to taxpayers in the towns, and we think that's a real win. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing these budget transfers now, is to be able to take care of that future capital liability without having to go back to the two towns for money.
And the second vote we're going to be looking for is the amended FY26 budget to reflect the additional state revenues that we received. You did see the backup in the packets, but basically we're going to be asking for an additional, hold please, $237,890, which reflects the increase of state aid of $387,890, less the $150,000 used to reduce the assessments that we previously agreed on the budget Saturday, to bring the assessments back to what they were. The third vote is going to be on a municipal bond for the 10 years. We had a ban, a $5 million ban. We have about 1.2 million left in the revolving account to pay off that ban, so we knew we had to go out to bond for the difference of it. As Peter said earlier, we did get a AAA bond rating, which was wonderful. And Hilltop Securities, they accepted all the 7 bids, and it was Capital Finances, I believe, that won the bid. And as Peter said, 3.029, so 3.03, which is a great rate for us. And because of our bond rating, they were able to bring down what we actually need to bond to 3.530, and the rest was premiums. So we'll be coming to you for that. And then finally, we are going to be asking to create a health insurance stabilization account. We had to go through the Board of Selectmen, or the Select Board, sorry. We had to go through each Select Board to have them approve first, per Mass General Law, which both of them have done. And now we can come to the committee to see if we can open up the stabilization account. As we talked about previously, from HIT, we got a $619,000 check that will also get put into E&D, and we are going to come back in the fall and ask to probably transfer about $300,000 of that into the stabilization account. And that's going to be used for unforeseen circumstances where we have additional new employees signing up for health insurance that we hadn't budgeted for. Those are our 4 votes that will be coming. Does anyone have any questions?
I just want to give a little explanation on this idea of like bonds. You heard the term ban, and I just want to explain that a little from the building project perspective. building projects are funded through long-term debt. Long-term debt for a municipality is a bond. While you're doing construction, we bonded most of the project. About 3/4 of this project was bonded upfront, and that resulted in us getting an extraordinarily low interest rate. Until you're done with the project, though, you don't know the exact amount that you have to borrow for 30 years. And so what you do is a series of one-year borrowings, and then once the project is closed out and you have your final accounting of it, then you do the long-term borrowing for that. Initially, we thought we'd do it at 30 years, but based on the rate we could get, we actually accelerated that to 10, which means that the debt for the community will come off, that portion of it will be 20 years sooner than what we had anticipated. In an ideal world, we knew we had to do the bond this year because of the timing of the ban from the previous 2 years. You can only do it at one-year intervals. In an ideal world, MSBA would have completed their accounting process and been able to return money to us ahead of doing the bond. However, they are still in the accounting process, and they won't finalize our accounting until August at their board meeting, which means that the final reimbursement from MSBA is not in our bank account. It's still sitting at the state. Once they do that, we will receive another $1 million-ish check from the state of Massachusetts as the final installment from MSBA. If we had already had that, it would have been easier to have a discussion with you about whether or not to roll that into the bond or not, but because of the timing of this, we can't. So what our intent to do is to combine that $1 million with the $2.9 million that Sherry just talked about as the way to get to the $4 million for the high school rooftop projects that I talked about. We think that's, keeping capital money in capital is a reasonable way to approach this in a fiscal manner that takes care of our long-term needs, again, without having to go back to taxpayers and the communities to fund more things.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks, Sherry. Questions from the committee? Yanshin.
I have a question regarding the second vote, the restoration of some of the positions. The committee did receive emails from reading specialists and literacy coaches about the need to hopefully restore all 4 reading assistant positions. And I see that we're planning on restoring 2. And the other thing that I noticed that we're restoring 47 hours of classroom assistance. Is that I'm just curious, where's that number coming from? Is it need-based or principal advocacy?
So, we do talk to our principals a lot, and I think one of the things that we knew going into the budget process was we were reducing classroom assistants by 25%, the funding for that. We made that reduction, and principals have now been building out their schedules for next year, and reducing that full 25% really makes some of the operational needs of the buildings very, very challenging. And so, that's one overall issue that we were trying to solve with this, was just to provide some relief to the buildings in operationalizing what they have to do day to day. A second piece, though, is we really looked hard at Blanchard Elementary School, and what we found out is at Blanchard, the educators there are actually the only classroom teachers in the district that don't get a prep every day. Whereas all 5 of the other schools get a prep every day because of the resources that they have in the schools, but Blanchard wasn't getting one. Even though contractually, teachers aren't required at elementary level to get a prep every day, we just felt it was the right thing to do at this point, which is why the overall allocation to Blanchard of classroom assistant hours is significantly higher than the other schools. When we talk about, kind of just to put scope on what we're talking about for elementary general education assistants, the schools next year basically have 7 part-time assistants each. This is not a large workforce that we have left in their schools for this. And what we're doing overall in the schools, it's about 5 extra hours, which is just, lunch and recess coverage, just the opportunity to have a little bit more time in the building for individuals and make, quite honestly, the jobs a little bit more appealing for people than just keep cutting hours. So that was the thought there. Faculty Support Center at the high school, is another one that you might be wondering. That's FSC. That is something that the high school had for years as a way of helping educators with some of their burden and workload. The move to have duties at the high school has been progressing, and we're planning on implementing that next year. And one of the small things we thought we could do at the high school level, based on a lot of educator feedback, was to provide just some support in that faculty support center. So those are the two other things. The other items on the list that aren't reading assistants are all special education needs, which when we reviewed kind of the changes from, early and mid-year understanding of IEP needs to the end of the year, as IEP meetings happen and transition meetings start to happen, more needs crop up, students move into the district, and those special education needs are actually required in order to provide the level of services we need. And then the multilingual educator, during budget season, we came to you, we needed really to add 3. We didn't add any. This is just one step in that direction. So we tried to take kind of a balanced approach to restoration, knowing that the budget made so many areas so thin that we were just trying to provide some relief in a few targeted areas.
Anything else? All right. Thank you very much, Sherry. We are on to subcommittee member reports. So Peter, you already gave a brief update on the strategic planning and district reorganization steering committee. Anything from the other members of the committee who are on that? No, the one thing I will point out is one of our actions for our next meeting next week is to find an easier name to say other than Strategic Planning and Reorganization Committee, with a very strong focus on strategic planning. Policy. Any quick updates from policy? Seeing none, we're going to move on. Anybody have, noting the hour, any committee or other board liaisons have anything that you want to report? Wonderful. I'm going to move us straight to the consent agenda. As a reminder, items on the consent agenda do not usually require discussion and are approved with one vote unless any member would like an item held for discussion. If you would like it held, just say hold. A reminder, you don't have to be present at a meeting to vote on the minutes. Item A, approval of ABRSC meeting minutes of 5/22/25. Item B, approval of revised strategic planning and reorganization steering committee membership. Item C, Douglas School PTO donation of $6,000, sunshade donation for the Boardwalk campus. Item D, Gates School PTO $6,000 sunshade donation for the Boardwalk campus playground. Item E, Conant School PTO $2,850 picnic table donation to the Conant School. Item F, AB Boosters Lacrosse Boosters Boys donation to ABRHS Athletics for a coach bus of $1,000 and uniforms and $4,000. And item G, approval of warrants as presented in the packet from 6/5/25. Seeing as no items were held,
I do have one, just so the steering committee, was a member added, removed?
Do you want to hold that item and we'll
Yes,
discuss
please.
it? Okay, so we're going to hold item B. And then, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda items A and C through G?
So moved.
Second.
So Leela did a great job of making the motion, and I'm going to give Lisa the second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Glenn, you had a question on item B.
Yeah, just a person was added, they couldn't make it, or?
Yes, Peter's going to speak to that very briefly.
Yeah, at the time you voted the original membership, we had not yet identified an educator from Blanchard. We wanted to make sure that there was one educator from each of the elementary schools on this group, and so they've been added. We're just asking you to revote it.
I'm good. So moved.
Second.
How long has my mic not been on? Just that one sentence. So Glenn made the motion to approve the updated membership of the Strategic Planning and Reorganization Steering Committee. Really needs a new name. Leela seconded the motion. All of those in favor? Aye. Any abstentions? Any opposed? Unanimous. Keep scrolling. Anything in the FYI to highlight? Our retirees are again listed in the FYI, so congratulations and thank you for your service to all of our retirees. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Ben and Vikram made the second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Thank you all very much. Remember, we're meeting next week, 6:30 p.m.